call the Lee County Board of Commissioners to order. It's good to see a full house tonight. Thank you for coming. I'm glad to see you interested in county government. If you would, turn off or mute your cell phones for us, please. And then we're going to have our invocation and pledge of allegiance, and then we'll move into our business sessions. Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for being our Lord and our God. Thank you for loving us and watching care over us. We thank you for your presence in our county, Father. We just ask, God, as we go into our business meeting tonight, that you will help guide us with your principles, give us wisdom to do the best service that we can for our county. Guide, direct, and keep us for us in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have something just a little bit different to start off tonight. And I'm going to go down front here. We have a gentleman that's spent an immense amount of his personal time and effort and finances for the last 2 years in doing our young commissioners, and that's Mr. Kirk Smith. So I'm going to ask Kirk to come down. This is a program that we have taken, and we've taken some of the youth in Brief Triangle J. They have spoken in our schools for 13, 14, 15-year-olds. They've done a phenomenal job, and it is amazing to see them grow from shy young folks to someone that's active. They know probably government better than most of us. And when they get through, they know how to sit at a business luncheon and use proper etiquette. They know pretty much the ins and out workings of county government, city government, the sheriff's department, just about every department they go to and visit. And Kirk and Bill from the extension, has done a fantastic job. But I wanted to do this for Kirk. Resolution, Kirk D. Smith was appointed Lee County Board of Commissioners on June 4, 2007 to replace former Commissioner Amy Stevens, whereas Commissioner Smith resigned as County Commissioner in December 2007 due to work conflict, whereas Kirk D. Smith was re-elected to Lee County Board of Commissioners in November 2012 and continues to serve in said position, and whereas Commissioner Smith was elected Vice Chairman of Lee County Board of Commissioners in December 2012 and continues to serve in that capacity. And whereas Commissioner Smith currently serves on the Fort Bragg Regional Alliance Board of Directors, Lee County Fire Advisory Board, Local Emergency Planning Commission, Sand Hills Mental Health Board, and is an alternate member on the Board of Education Liaison Committee, Parks and Recreation, and Triangle J for Government, and we're missing one there is Harpo. I've got to put that in there. And Commissioner Smith was instrumental in forming Lee County Young Commissioners Leadership Program in July 2013, along with local 4-H staff serving 12 youth. And whereas Commissioner Smith continued the Lee County Young Commissioners Leadership Program in 2014, serving 9 youth. And whereas the Lee County Young Commissioners Leadership Program is an intensive 2-week youth leadership program offering mentorship, leadership skills, and training, while also developing a greater awareness and understanding of local government and the relevant issues facing the community. And whereas it is the desire of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to recognize the achievements of Commissioner Kirk D. Smith and to express its appreciation to him for his dedicated service and significant contributions to Lee County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners for Lee County of Lee that it wishes for Commissioner Smith continued success in his service to the citizens of Lee County, and be it further reserved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the meeting of the board. A copy be presented to Commissioner Smith, presented this day, 8th of September 2014. Thank you, Commissioner.
Can I have a word? I can't thank enough Susan Conlon and the 4-H staff and the volunteers that work with them. They did an outstanding job of mentoring and getting these youngsters around. They are the ones that did all the work, and this is too much.
Okay. You're done.
Thank you.
Okay, the second one, Mr. Jim Womack, would you come down,
Good luck, Jimmy.
While Jim's coming, I have to say, I have a great board. I have probably one of the best boards that I've ever worked with or served with, and each one of these deserves some recognition. But again, Jim has spent a lot of his own personal time, money, efforts, going all over the states that do hydraulic fracturing, studying the issues, studying what's true, what's false, and working very hard at trying to protect our county. And I appreciate everything that he's done. He's channeled me to places that I need to go check, and I've been in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and some of the other places that are drilling. And being an old Texas boy, I knew pretty much about some of it firsthand. But anyway, just to check to see what was new. But Jim spent a lot of time and personal effort, and I appreciate everything that he has done. And whereas the Lee County Board of Commissioners wishes to acknowledge and express its appreciation to James K. Womack for his service as a member of the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources Mining and Energy Commission. And whereas James K. Womack was elected to the Lee County Board of Commissioners in November 2010 and sworn into office on December 6, 2010. And whereas James K. Womack was appointed to the Mining and Energy Commission in September 2012 and appointed chairman of that commission later that same month. And whereas James K. Womack has worked tirelessly to help with developing a modern regulatory program for the management of oil and gas exploration and development activities in North Carolina, including the use of horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And whereas Commissioner Womack also serves as a member of the Lee County Economic Development Corporation Board, Environmental Review Advisory Committee, and is the alternate member of the Fort Bragg Regional Alliance. And whereas it is the desire of Lee County Board of Commissioners to recognize the achievements of Commissioner James K. Womack and to express its appreciation to him for his dedicated service and contributions to Lee County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners for Lee County that it wishes for Commissioner Womack continued success in his service to the citizens of Lee County, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the meeting of this board. A copy be presented to Commissioner Womack, presented this day, 8th day of September 2014. Thank you very much.
Well, there's a lot of folks that don't agree with this resolution. Some in the room tonight. I would just tell you that the reason we invested this time and energy into shale energy development for the county and for the state is because the legislature willed it. The people of North Carolina elected them into that position. They willed it, and they gave us the charter. I volunteered my time and talents to bring prosperity to the county and to the state. I do believe in the work that we're doing, and we're doing it for noble purposes. Time will tell whether or not we're successful, but we have committed ourselves to that purpose, to bring economic wealth and prosperity to the county and to safe and responsible drilling. And we do encourage all of you that have concerns in that area to put your concerns in writing and submit those comments back to the Mining and Energy Commission before the 30th of the month so that we can take those comments under consideration before we finalize our rule set. So thank you, Charlie, and thank you to the board for your consideration.
Do we have any additional agenda items?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to add, under new business, discussion on recognition, for Broadway Town Manager Bob Stevens on Society Hall. So here's.
Okay, under, where we're at?
I guess new
Business.
business.
Okay.
Item K.
Yeah, in fact, that's Sunday, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other additions, sir? Agenda. If not, do I hear a motion for the agenda?
Move to approve.
Amy, first. Okay, all those, any further discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous? Okay, approval of consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, and motion, and, any discussion?
I would ask that the board consider moving item G under new business, cardinal memorandum of agreement,
Where you want to do that?
anywhere on the consent agenda.
Item G. He's requesting to move item G up to the consent agenda.
Okay, Dr. Mokashak made his way here tonight, so.
I'm sure Mike wouldn't be disappointed.
I would think not.
Is that okay with you, Mike?
You're welcome to speak if you like, but it looks like one of the best deals we can get. My God.
Okay, anybody, okay, so we have a motion to do that, anybody have any concern with that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Mike.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we've approved, well, actually, it was a modified agenda, consent agenda, and we just approved the consent agenda with that modification, is that what we're doing? Okay.
Not quite proper procedure, but we did it.
We can make it work.
Yeah. Anything to shorten our agenda. All right, we move in now to time for public comments. I'd like to ask you to remain, keep it at 3 minutes, and if you would carry some time for us. Discuss the issue that you have, and have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address when you come up to talk. The first one, I believe, is Andy Stevens.
Good evening, Andy Stevens, 2109 Leona Drive, Greensboro, North Carolina. I am here tonight representing the leadership of Grassroots North Carolina, North Carolina's gun rights organization of note. I'm here to discuss the consideration of your concealed carry ordinance, or actually your firearms ordinance in total. I believe I'm looking at a current copy of your ordinance, which was adopted in November of 1995. It is out of date, out of compliance with state law, and it no longer references the appropriate subsection of the law, so that at this point you do need to take immediate action because your ordinance is basically no good. It certainly is no good in regards to what state legislature has done in 2011 and 2013 regarding the carrying of concealed firearms in parks as well. Municipalities and counties no longer have authority to regulate but specific exceptions, the carrying of concealed handguns in parks in North Carolina. That being said, I just want to give you some information. Since November of 1995, where the Lee County Commission did take this ordinance that basically repeals or restricts the use of concealed handguns throughout any county property. Since 1995, concealed handguns have been the law in North Carolina. Within those 20 years to today, under both Democrat and Republican administrations, the rights and privileges to carry in additional concealed locations has been granted. No retractions have been made, and there has been no fear-mongering. There has been no recorded instances of people that are abusing the privilege. Concealed handgun people are background checked by the local sheriff. They do a very thorough job investigating these people, and they are among the best people that you have in your community. So to treat them as if they're going to be a criminal tomorrow is basically nonsensical. Today there are over 500,000 concealed carry permit holders in North Carolina, many of them here in your community. These people have families, significant others, and they represent a large voting bloc, and they do vote together. So that is a consideration as well. Again, specifically, we're here tonight basically to ask you to consider repealing any restrictions on these lawful people who have demonstrated themselves to be safe, sane, and sober for the last 20 years. And certainly to do so with the understanding that your current ordinance is basically no good, and the signs on your parks, on your facilities, and on the door of this building basically is meaningless today as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steve. Yeah, Mr. David, you just maybe have
I've got a
questions.
couple of questions
Sure.
for you, if you don't mind. I was inundated by letters from members of your group.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We're very good at sending out friendly reminders to folks to encourage activity.
It was one form letter about 60 times,
Right.
but whatever. But my question was, how many members do you have in Lee County? Because basically the names of the people that I got were from other parts of the state.
Right. As far as concealed carry handgun permit holders.
No, I mean members of your group.
Okay, specifically, we have over 15,000 active members. We have an email roster of alert people that subscribe to our alerts of well over 110,000. We will be mailing about 150,000 Remember in November voter guides to folks throughout. So Lee County, I would say, is representative in general of all the other counties in North Carolina, and that out of those 15,000 people proportionately, you would have a significant number here.
But you don't know the number.
I don't do the membership statistics, so but we do have 15,000 members that actually pay dues, and like I say, the larger number subscribes to our alerts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kevin Dotson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to speak. When I saw I had 3 minutes, I had to go back out with the car to scale this down a little bit, but I should be able to get it in under 3. My name is Kevin Dodson. I'm a full-time law enforcement officer as well as a firearms instructor, and of course teach concealed carry. I've taught about 5,000 students in concealed carry since March of 2009. I'd just like to share a quote with you from World War II Japanese Admiral Yamamoto. He was quoted as saying, "You cannot invade mainland United States. There will be a rifle behind each blade of grass." And of course, he wasn't talking about the military or the police. He was talking about the citizens being armed. Thank God he thought that. I believe that the community is a safer community when the public doesn't know who is armed. And what I really mean is that the criminal doesn't know who is armed. Concealed carry holders are among some of the safest citizens to have in your presence. Concealed carry holders must go through 8 hours plus of training, including the background checks, as was mentioned. I gave a red book to each one of you. That's the lesson plan book. At your leisure, you could look at page 21, 22, and 23. That's all of the disqualifiers that would disqualify one from getting a concealed carry permit. This is not 1995, guys. This is 2014. It's a different day. It's a different day here as far as crime goes. Alamance and Cherokee counties have repealed this law, and recently Rowan County did the same, lifting these restrictions in parks and county facilities. I like to see us in Lee County lead by example and follow suit. Law-abiding concealed carry permittees are educated in the use of force and the use of deadly force. They have to demonstrate proficiency with a firearm and also take a written test at the end of the day. There are many states, guys, in the United States that do not require any training at all whatsoever to get a concealed carry. I'm glad that North Carolina does. Like I said, I'm a full-time police officer, and I know police can't be everywhere at all times. And usually when we arrive, we're there to do what? We're there to take the report. Defending oneself with a firearm is by far, in my opinion, the safest course of action when one is confronted by a criminal. Sad fact is, a lot of folks don't carry concealed, including cops off duty. A lot of folks will carry concealed in their cars. Criminals hate people with concealed carry permits because they know that if they intend on doing harm to someone in a place where handguns are allowed, their force will be met, it's subject to be met with equal force. It is ridiculous to think that posting a sign will keep a gun-toting criminal out. What is the real reason that anyone would not want to repeal this law and allow concealed carry permittees to carry in county buildings? And it's been mentioned, is it they think because somebody's going to flip out, somebody's going crazy? Well, I mean, anybody can do that. You know, concealed carry, non-concealed carry, there's no guarantee that no one will not do that. But other than that, you know, what would you say to Mr. Citizen or Miss Citizen? Well, as a commissioner, I know that you've taken the 8 hours plus concealed carry class, but I don't trust you. I know that you've gone through an extensive background check and you've been fingerprinted and we check. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ed Underwood.
Thank you. Ed Underwood, 3309 Westcott Circle in Sanford here. I have just a couple of very, very off-the-cuff comments concerning the same topics that have just been brought up. And I think it's something that we need to consider. We have uniformed policemen here to protect our meeting here. And they are...
They're emergency services, Ed.
Okay.
And one sheriff.
One deputy.
Okay, they are here to protect us, and I think any people that may be perpetrators or potential criminals or something like that know that they're here, and they will take that into consideration, and we are much, much safer because these distinguished gentlemen are here. And I think the same thing applies to somebody of a high caliber, high proven character that has the concealed carry permit coming in here and coming into the rest of the county meetings, public buildings and stuff like that, that will continue to be in the minds of those potential criminals and prevent them from at least greatly reduce the possibility of any violence or any criminal activity. I think that would be it. Another thing, sort of different, when I was walking in to the meeting today, I saw the fracturing signs out there, and I realized, I said, gee, you know, that may not be the greatest thing in the world, but you know, oil wells aren't the greatest thing in the world either. But if we didn't have any oil wells around here, most of us wouldn't have been able to make it to this meeting here tonight, unless you live within a couple of miles of the building and we're able to walk. You know, we have to have gasoline to drive here. And you know, we lived out in Texas, and we had and we moved back here to home back 7 years ago, and we lived on a property out there 10 miles south of Fort Hood that permitted hydraulic fracturing, and property values went up over the years. You know, one of our lots we sold for almost twice what we paid for it after just about 7 years out there. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Stephen Niceford.
Good evening, County Commissioners, Manager, Attorney, and citizens of Lee County. My name is Steve Nystrom. I live at 2219 Lee Avenue, Sanford, North Carolina. I'm in favor of the carry and conceal law. Please consider the following. The right to bear arms is our Second Amendment to the Constitution. It simply states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Bullies cut across all races, sexes, and classes of people. Bullies are notorious for picking on the weak, less fortunate, the unsuspecting, and the unprepared. All criminals are bullies. All we as people have to do to let them win is do nothing. However, worse than that, we have a proclivity to assist these criminals in making their job easier. We do not trust the American citizen to do the right thing. We tend to trust the criminal will not take advantage of us. Example, a car is a 3,000-pound projectile if used incorrectly. However, we have to trust the person coming down the other side of the street is focused, rational, awake, not drunk, and not mean-spirited. Driving a car is a privilege. The right to own and bear arms is a constitutional right. The only reason to have a concealed weapon for a law-abiding citizen is for protection. I can't think of a better reason to have one. A couple questions need to be asked, even though they're painful. Would 9/11 have ever occurred if the pilots were armed and in a locked cockpit? The other question, would a potential criminal think twice before committing a crime if they were not sure who had the weapon? One final note, ladies from the South are known to carry pistols. I know I come here. I believe it's a real comfort for a lady to know that she has an equalizer if she is in a position of being assaulted, whether in a building late at night or on a dark, lonely road. Without the weapon, she's very vulnerable to the criminal element, as we all are. Please consider the benefits of having a gun to ensure your safety and others. North Carolina spends a lot of money training people to carry and conceal a weapon. I appreciate the fact that I do not have to leave my home if an intruder breaks in. I can defend my family and home and will not be charged with a crime here in North Carolina. I cannot make that same statement from the state of Massachusetts. I would have to leave. I want to thank everybody here on the Commissioner Board meeting. I think we could all learn something from each of you on how to be passionate and still communicate in a civil tone. I've been here several months and I've seen you all in action. It's easier said than done. You do a great job, and thank you.
Okay, next item of business is comments from department heads in reference to repeal of gun ordinance. And who do we have tonight?
First up will be Lisa Shearer from DSS. She's a supervisor working for Brenda Potts.
Good evening, Chairman Parks and Commissioners. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to speak to you. As he said, my name is Lisa Shearer, and I supervise Child Protective Services for DSS. I'm asking that you not allow concealed carry in our county buildings. I have heard the proposed resolution, and I know that numerous people have worked and paid to receive their permits for concealed carry. However, in CPS, we work with families who are in crisis, with children who are in danger from their parents. Though we try to diffuse it, our involvement ratchets up the tension very often because we take children from their homes. We require people to go to court. We delve into very personal and private areas of their lives. Many of the people we work with are exceedingly angry with us and will not hear us, much less understand the process we are explaining. This animosity toward us extends beyond the parents onto other relatives who become quite enraged at us. State statutes prevent us from disclosing facts of cases under any circumstances except a court order, even when those facts could explain and diffuse the situation. Our cases involve parents on drugs, parents with active criminal involvement, parents with substantial mental health issues of both long-standing and recent duration. North Carolina law prohibits weapons, permitted or not, in all state and federal buildings. Yet the business carried out in those offices is cut and dried compared to the level of anger, acrimony, contempt, and vengefulness we deal with in our cases every day. Child Protective Services are carried out only through the county level. Let me state my concerns. Having guns around children is never a good idea, and we work with children. We transport them to different places. We pick them up from school. We wait in our offices. They wait in our offices for appointments, sometimes for hours. We supervise visits between them and their parents. We interview them in our offices and in conference rooms. Usually we have more than one child with us. We hold meetings in which children are part. Please understand that in Children's Services we have 12 social workers, all with their own separate cases and schedules. At times we have children or families in 4 different meeting rooms, and the same in our building with a social worker involved in each. We have other social workers in the field, another taking reports on the telephone. Sometimes social workers must go out on an immediate response case. Sometimes they get called into court at a moment's notice. There also are emergencies in cases that must be dealt with right away. The 2 supervisors are often trying to provide support at meetings, attending required meetings of their own, speaking on the phone to disgruntled family members, and directing staff actions in ongoing cases. The pace of the job is frenetic and intense. No one sits in an office at the ready to offer assistance. Instead, our cell phones are our lifelines. Without going into what we see and experience in our cases, please believe me, the stress is incredible. Child Protective Services social workers, through the normal scope of their work, are at risk for post-traumatic stress and secondary traumatic stress. Creating a situation where guns are formally allowed in their own office building exacerbates the stressors of the job and could lead to workers leaving, thus overburdening those remaining as the cases never stop coming. This could lead to clues being missed and critical mistakes being made. And in CPS, critical mistakes can have life-threatening consequences. Having guns in the building, either being brought in by clients or brought in by employees, increases exponentially the possibility that something could happen. Studies have shown that children are fascinated by guns, and that even children who have been told to never touch guns have been filmed picking up a gun and holding it and pointing it when they saw one and found themselves alone with it. Persons choosing to own and keep guns in their homes take on the legal onus of ensuring that a gun is properly locked and stored so children cannot access them, because children do not have the brain development necessary to make measured decisions and accurately weigh consequences. So many of the parents we work with also lack this ability. If a child did find a gun or appropriate a gun in some manner that had been brought into the county building legally and used that gun to harm him or herself or someone else, it could have tragic results. Even if death or injury was averted, it would be a catastrophe for the county in terms of liability and the cost associated with that. And it would be a personal catastrophe for the worker, who would possibly be fired or require workers' comp due to the stress and trauma. Though perhaps such an incident could be pinpointed to the failings of one employee, it would affect every single employee in this building, and it would be a negative effect. People don't want to work in a place where such incidents can happen. Right now, we have employees who are competent and dedicated and see the job of CPS as it is: difficult, demanding, dangerous, sometimes degrading and demeaning. These diligent employees take risk every day, but the risks are mitigated by their training and the strategies they use. And the reason they stay is because they can see every day that they are making a difference. Our county government center has minimal protections. Allowing guns in the building, even by those with permits, is still allowing guns in the building, where emotions run high. If guns are allowed in the building by persons with concealed carry permits, what is to stop persons without concealed carry permits from bringing in concealed guns? It is my understanding that legally no one except law enforcement can ask to see a permit holder's concealed carry permit. Further, we do not have law enforcement security officers in place at our building, nor do we have metal detectors with the necessary attendants. While I understand that within the permitting process, mental health data is checked, whether a person has been found not guilty by reason of insanity or has been involuntarily committed to a mental hospital, please don't put too much stock in that. While this data is part of the FBI check, 19 states do not provide this data to the FBI. Our Sheriff's Department also checks some area hospitals. I find it very concerning that permits are renewed only every 5 years. Much can happen in a person's life in 5 years. For example, schizophrenia's peak age at onset is in the early to mid-20s for males and in the late 20s for females. Schizophrenia can involve paranoia, delusions, and hallucinations. So a person who has had a mental health background check to gain a permit at age 21 or so could have a major psychiatric disorder during the period prior to renewal. Also, permit holders can begin using drugs. In Lee County, we have a very real heroin problem, epidemic overuse of prescription pain medicine or opiates, and high use of synthetic drugs like spice and bath salts. It's very concerning to me having people in this building with very little experience of having, handling, and shooting guns. That would include employees as well as the public. Also, inexperienced employees who may bring their gun to work would have no sound foundation for judging escalating conflicts, perhaps pulling or showing his or her weapon at a time when it was inappropriate, or at a time when the conflict could become tragic, either through a legally held gun being taken over by an angry person or a permitted person overreacting to the perceived threat. If a scenario like this were to occur, the repercussions could be quite broad and extend beyond the individuals directly involved and the ensuing litigation. Traumatic reactions among staff could lead to missed work days, increased insurance costs, extended stress leave. In children's services, we have very low turnover compared to other counties. However, having to deal with the admitted stressors of this job while adding in the likelihood of having guns brought into the building is likely to lead to increased stress, decreased efficiency at work tasks, increased turnover, and I fear it could lead to less qualified and smaller pools of applicants for the larger job openings. Of course, it's well known that greater turnover leads to greater employer costs, which are ultimately borne by this county. I have limited myself to discussing only Child Protective Services and the ramifications related to the social workers in this unit. Many other services offered in this building, particularly by DSS, create situations of high tension. Certainly child support, where DNA rules fathers in or out, and where child support monies are demanded through court action with jail time and appropriation of state tax refunds as consequences, comes to mind. Food stamps and Medicaid have been in the news because of issues with new state computer systems, and anger and conflict have risen to new heights in those units. Add to this taxes and appraisals, and we have quite a mix of angry taxpayers paying visits to this building. Even if this proposed resolution is not passed, I would like the government center to have the same level of security that our county schools have. The schools under state law cannot have weapons brought in, yet they have an armed law enforcement officer on the grounds during open hours. Your commission meetings are guarded by an armed law enforcement officer, even though weapons are currently not allowed in. The work done here certainly demonstrates and justifies the need for a full-time patrol officer. I do not have a concealed carry permit, but I know numerous people who do. They carry in situations where they perceive danger. There is no danger to our taxpayers by the employees of Lee County. They should feel no personal threat by entering a county-owned building. I don't want the public or employees coming armed to this county building because they want to be rescuers. In 2 months, I will have worked with this county for 30 years. We have not had gun violence within our offices at that in that time. There is no clamor for the need for self-protection. There has been nothing that shows any inaction or any inattention on the part of law enforcement. As a county employee, I ask you to look at this proposed resolution and seriously question, with reason and ration, if such a measure is needed, and if it will help or improve the county that we have all worked so hard for all these years. Thank you again for your time and attention.
I have some
Harold,
questions for her.
Could,
Okay.
are we allowed questions?
Just remember, I might jump in myself, so.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, so Ms. Shearer, from what I understand you're saying, is when you have to go out and intercede between a family, and I know most of these families are, shall we say, disruptive or not normally whole and concise, you actually put yourself into a situation? Do you have law enforcement attached to you when you go out, intercede on a family to take a child away?
It's our belief that, I'm sorry, it's our belief that law enforcement ratchets up the defensiveness of the parents that we work with, and only in the most intense cases would we take law enforcement with us, because that brings out the worst in people. We're trained to go out and work with people without law enforcement, and probably 95% of the time we do. We have and do and will continue to call law enforcement when we feel there is a need for it. But it's not a regular process that we do, not routine at all.
If I might, you jumped right to the question of guns in your presumption. You repeatedly addressed guns in there. I thought this was about concealed carry.
What do you conceal carry? I mean,
Well, knives, other weapons. Concealed carry is more than guns.
The law would only allow concealed carry of guns.
It does not address knives?
It does not. They're prohibited.
Knives are still prohibited?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so all those other weapons are still prohibited?
Yes, sir.
And we're not attempting to address any other weapons?
Not under concealed carry, no.
Okay. And the other question I have for you is, with your presumption that you know, because you're concerned, based on what I heard you say, your concern is strictly focused on the fact that when you eliminate the ban, that we would now be introducing weapons into public buildings, and particularly where you have to intercede in high tension environments. What gives you the notion that in those high tension environments now that weapons won't be brought in?
I can only base it on experience.
Okay.
And I've been here for almost 30 years.
Right.
That has not been the case. But this is bringing it to public attention that weapons would now be allowed in county buildings. And people do read the newspaper and get word of mouth, and so those kinds of things get out. And I do have a very big concern about people carrying weapons
So-
concealed that are
So,
not.
so are you, can you stand here and tell me now that weapons are not being brought into the building?
I cannot stand here and say that they're
Okay,
not,
so,
Mr. Wambach.
so can you stand here and tell me for sure that weapons will be brought into the building under this ban lifting?
Yes, if you're allowing concealed carry permits, I can say that.
No, can you tell me with absolute assurance that weapons will be brought into the building if you lift concealed carry? I mean, if you
I'm
don't
afraid I
know
don't
now.
understand your
But see,
question.
but the point I'm making is the same point.
Yeah,
If
but-
you don't know, I mean, I guess the point is, if you don't know that weapons aren't being brought in now, how can you know for sure that the weapons will be brought in when you lift the ban?
To
You're
my-
asking about non-concealed weapons.
See, I guess the point is that if you don't know that weapons aren't being brought in now, how can you know for sure when you lift the ban that they will be brought in? I mean, that's, the point I'm making
I
is,
can-
you can't know that for sure.
I can tell you that right now, we know, in some instances that have come out, that weapons have come into the building.
Sure.
You know, in talking with employees during this whole process, they have seen weapons in the building.
And people have been bringing knives into the building, we know that.
Absolutely.
One time, I think Brenda Potts said she was asked to take a knife away from someone.
Right.
I will tell you that one of the concerns that the employees expressed to me and to other department heads is that the perception that you are going to give to the public by lifting the ban. I think you know, if you can bring concealed, you know, what would stop, you know, anybody bringing concealed on the premises? Because we can't ask for permits. We're not going to say, hey, show us the permit at the door. So, you know, would that increase the number of people who would actually bring concealed illegally onto the premises? Which was a question I was asked, and I just like trying to answer questions right now. I can't give them a guarantee it would increase or decrease the number of people who would be coming on the building. And I think that raises the number one issue with the employees is, you know, perception more than it is probably reality. And I think we have to deal with that with the employees because we are an employer. You know, these are buildings that employees work in, and other employers have taken action to keep guns out of the workplace. So I get asked those questions.
If I could make a suggestion to the board, that we just hear our employees speak and then call them up to ask questions later, because this seems to be taking an argumentative tone.
Well, but see, you asked questions of the first gentleman, so I thought we were gonna be asking questions as the.
Mr. Chair, I think that in that case, then you're even, 1 and 1. I would suggest very seriously, I'm very uncomfortable having employees question in this arena. I think that is not a wise or good thing to do.
She's just giving an opinion, and I
Well,
think she's allowed
just-
to give her opinion.
Just.
If I could correct a few things she stated that are incorrect.
Well, I don't want you to correct anything.
So let's hold that discussion. Thank you, Ron.
I think Terrell's ready to go.
Darryl, I think you're next.
Let me say thank you for this opportunity. I feel kind of awkward, but I do want to talk about.
Darryl, for the audience, you want to
Okay.
give your position?
I'm Terrell Jones, and I'm the health director at the Lee County Health Department. When I first came here, within several months of being here in 2011, there was an incident in our hallway where 2 people got in a fight, and we immediately called 911, and Lieutenant Yarborough was there very quickly, but still I thought about that 2 or 3 minute interval. The average time for an active shooter is 21 seconds to take one victim and then select the next. So we could have had, in that 3 minutes, we could have had 9 people go down before someone got there. So I'd asked Mr. Crumpton about a year ago if I could have a gun, in my office, just in case something started happening that might be able to intercede. He said, no, there's an ordinance and forget about it. So I didn't forget about it, but I have put together here something, and you've already heard a good bit of this, but I think I'll just run through it. Government buildings fall into the definition of public places along with churches, businesses, bars, restaurants, streets, public transport, parks, malls, places of employment, and health facilities. So this building right here, besides it being a local government building, is also a place of employment and has a health facility. So it's three out of this group in the definition of public place. Having a concealed carry permit is a privilege, just like driving a vehicle. To obtain the privilege, one must get training, pass a course, and pay for the privilege initially and upon renewals. However, a concealed carry permit is less forgiving as far as violating your privilege than driving a vehicle. Concealed carry permit holders are law-abiding citizens, individually approved by the sheriff in each county. Background, criminal, and mental health checks weed out elements that have demonstrated the potential to abuse such a privilege. People get concealed carry permits to, one, protect themselves from imminent grave bodily harm, two, to create the possibility to intercede on behalf of victims who are unarmed and vulnerable, and three, to create a deterrent. Since it is unknown whether the intended victim is armed, it raises the risk, and as a spillover effect, creates a deterrent. So the deterrent is what I wanted to focus on. And I'm going to go back before 1995. In 1995, that was the year the federal government placed a ban on weapons within 1,000 feet of schools. And before 1995, there were some states that had concealed carry permit laws and some that did not. There were 15 shootings that took place in schools in states without concealed carry laws, and only one shooting took place in states with concealed carry privileges. This was from 1977 to 1995. During that time, there were 19 deaths and 97 injuries in states where no CC privileges existed, and 1 death and 2 injuries in states where there was concealed carry privileges. So in other words, in a strictly economic terms, and where I got my information was from a paper by some economists and lawyers who did a research project and reported on it, that a concealed carry will raise the perpetrator's cost of acting. In other words, they'll get wounded or killed, or lower the expected benefits, and will do less damage if the perp encounters armed resistance. Again, in economic terms, the substitution effect, criminals attack more vulnerable prey, so they're going to go to the places where they know that their prey is vulnerable. A concealed carry situation makes it confusing for them. They don't know whether their prey is going to be vulnerable or not. So the bottom line is that concealed carry laws reduce the number of violent events, and the rate of these events has been going up until CC laws were passed in states, and then have been going down in those states where CC is allowed. Bringing this home, I spoke to the health department staff about the proposal to allow concealed carry. We had about a 45-minute to an hour discussion a couple of weeks ago. The nurses brought up the fact that they see guns and knives in the exam rooms in the health clinics. So guns and knives are coming in. They verified that for me. They've never told me that before, but concealed is concealed. You don't know. But in the exam rooms, people are disrobing and setting down pocketbooks and stuff, I guess. Excuse me. I think that settles the argument that you had a while ago. Let's see where I am here. They're being carried by non-law-abiding citizens. Allowing concealed carry in government buildings establishes a deterrent to violent acts and would create balance to a situation that already exists. Because the guns are concealed, there should not be any change in the perception of the safety we have now, except now we have a deterrent. So like you said, you don't know one way or the other whether the person's legally carry a concealed weapon if they do it properly, and they're trained on how to carry it properly. And just finally, I'd say that our staff, I just did a little poll, handed out a sticky pad, and had put 4 concealed carry or against, and we had 12 for, 6 against, and 1 unsure. So it was about a 2-to-1 in favor of having concealed carry with the health department staff that were at that meeting. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Terrell.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
No, sir, I thought it was equitable just to have 1 for and 1 against, and, you know, their concerns are echoed by, you know, sentiments of employees on both sides of the issue.
All right, so we'll move on to resolution to repeal the gun ordinance in county property.
Mr. Chairman, I wish to read the resolution. Resolution to amend Section 231 of the Lee County Code of Ordinances concerning concealed handguns on county property. Whereas North Carolina General Statute 415.11 prescribes the rules under which an individual possessing a valid concealed carry permit may carry such handguns, and whereas North Carolina General Statute 415.23 gives local governments the authority to determine whether to prohibit by ordinance the carrying of concealed handguns on county property, and whereas, as passed by the Lee County Board of Commissioners on November 6 of 1995, Section 231 of the Lee County Code of Ordinances prohibits concealed handguns on county property, and signs indicating such prohibition were posted on county property. And whereas it is the desire of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to no longer prohibit the carrying of concealed handguns on county property pursuant to a concealed carry permit, and whereas in order to do so, it is necessary for the Board of Commissioners to modify Section 231 of the Lee County Code of Ordinance, and whereas North Carolina General Statute 14.40940 further authorizes a county to regulate the transport, carrying, or possession of firearms by employees of the local unit of government in the course of their employment with the local unit of government. Whereas it is the desire of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to allow employees subject to reasonable personnel policies to carry concealed handguns while employed by the county, and whereas North Carolina General Statute 14.40940 authorizes the county to regulate the possession of firearms in public-owned buildings, on the grounds or parking areas of those buildings, or in the public parks or recreation areas, and where it is the desire of the Lee County Board of Commissioners to prohibit the open carry of handguns and other weapons on county property, and whereas it is the desire of the Board of Commissioners to authorize the county manager and his designees to amend any necessary personnel policies to conform to these modifications. Now therefore be it resolved by the Lee County Board of Commissioners as follows. Section 231 of the Lee County Code of Ordinances is hereby modified to allow for lawful carrying of properly permitted concealed handguns on county property, subject to any personnel policies or posted signage regulating such carrying of concealed handguns. Section 231 of the Lee County Code of Ordinances is further modified to prohibit the open carry of any weapon, handgun, or firearms on county property. The county manager and appropriate county officials are authorized to amend the Lee County personnel policy to establish reasonable policies and procedures for employees wishing to carry a concealed handgun on the county property during work hours. I move that we approve this resolution on its first reading.
Okay, we have, now we have more than 1 reading.
Yes, sir. If it's not unanimous, it takes 2 readings.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the resolution. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we table this resolution indefinitely.
We have a motion to approve, so you can't introduce a second motion.
If I might, I would like to request that Commissioner Smith withdraw this resolution. My understanding for doing this was to provide protection in all of our departments, correct? There was a security and safety concern, mainly brought out by our employee survey, I think is what you stated, when you brought the resolution forward. We want not only our employees, but our citizens that come to our offices to be protected. We have set a county precedent for protecting our employees and people that visit our county buildings, and they're called SROs. We did this unanimously as a board to provide school resource officers, deputies under the sheriff's department, to provide that protection and safety on a consistent, constant level at all times. And here it seems like this is a Band-Aid suggestion to just say, okay, if somebody wants to carry a concealed weapon in this department, then maybe they can protect the people in this department, but what about this department over here where the employees choose not to carry a concealed carry? So I think, you know, in order to be consistent with our county policy, we need to do the same thing. Our departments need deputies and not some random patchwork coverage with concealed carry individuals. Like I said, doing so, you know, I'm trying to think, everybody made great points. You know, Mr. Underwood brought up a great point when he ran for the Star Sheriff's deputy and said, you know, he felt safer with a deputy in this building, as opposed to no deputy being here, and maybe or maybe not somebody in here has a concealed carry. Excellent point. Ms. Scherer, you know, I've talked to a lot of people in DSS and the health department, and that's one of the things I hear constantly is they are so busy, you know, and a lot of the child care people, as she said with their cases, that no one's really sitting at the ready. You know, more bad things could happen before somebody could really be aware of what's going on and get their concealed carry out. Mr. Jones also, you know, I appreciate, Terrell, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. You want safety and security in your department, and I don't think anybody can provide that better than a deputy. They are well-trained and consistently trained. It's not that they get a renewal permit every 5 years after 1 day of training or 8 hours, however that's spliced up. They are consistently trained. And I would think, maybe it's a leap, but you and your employees would feel safer with an armed deputy there than maybe or maybe not somebody having a concealed weapon. Fair to say? And especially when I hear, you know, like you said, you've never heard before that the nurses were seeing guns and knives. That just throws up alarm bells to me. We need to do our job. Yes, we need the armed deputy in those departments. If we're going to do our job, protecting our employees and protecting the people that visit our offices, then a concealed carry is not a safe, consistent answer to this problem. I am a Second Amendment right person, believe me. That might shock some of my Democratic friends, but I own guns and I believe in people being able to have a concealed carry. But what we're looking at is the protection of our employees and people that visit our department offices. And that needs a consistent, constant, well-trained entity there. Whoever had the concealed weapon may go to lunch. They may be called out of the building to a meeting, and then, you know, there's no protection. If we provide the deputies, then we know that they're protected just like at the school.
Mr. Chair, can I, if you was
No,
done?
that's
I was under the impression that a table motion supersede the motion that was on the floor.
A table motion is a procedural motion. Does it not supersede the
You have to vote on the
substantive?
motion table first.
Okay.
If that fails, then you vote on the substantive.
Then you go back to the substantive rule.
Okay, any discussion on the table motion?
That's what our policy says.
Is that what our policy says?
It said last time, Robert, it said the last time we had an issue.
Okay, so is there discussion on the motion to table? If not, those in favor of table say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
We got 4 to 3. So the motion, we will go forward, and any discussion on
Yes,
the
Mr.
motion
Chairman.
for resolution?
Mr. Chairman, I seem to recall a year or so ago, when we were having this discussion about SROs, it was a similar division in the opinion of this board when there was a strong opposition to transferring SRO responsibility, when there were several of us that were strongly in favor of extending the protection of our sheriff's department to the public schools of Lee County. And we were insisting that there was nothing more important than protecting our children when they're in our charge every day by extending the sheriff's deputies out. And even though it's costing us about $1 million a year of taxpayer money, we thought that there was nothing more precious and more important than public safety of our children every day of the school year. And so we made that our top priority, and we became the first county in the state of North Carolina to protect our children when they're in our charge in every school building in Lee County. And I'm proud to say that we're doing that now, and the sheriff has taken that charge, and he has done a magnificent job. And every teacher that I've talked to, every principal, every assistant principal has expressed their appreciation, their gratitude. We've looked back now at that, and I think that was a wise decision, and I congratulate this board on making that tough decision. And we've made the budgetary adjustments to do it. I don't think there's anybody that's regretted doing that. If I'm wrong, please speak up. We made a wise decision on that public safety decision, and I think in retrospect, I don't regret it at all. Here we are again now contemplating another matter of public safety. And I'll grant you that we haven't had an incident yet to compel us to have to go to a consideration of CCH. But then again too, we didn't have an incident in our schools that compelled us to have to go to extend to the point of having to protect all of our elementary schools. We didn't have the incident that we had in Colorado or up in the Northeast. We didn't wait until that happened, until we had a death or a tragic incident where we had to have a massive loss of life to compel us to do that. We're in front of the situation. We heard already from the health director, someone who's charged with protecting public health. We heard him advocate for that tonight, and we heard him already admit that they're seeing guns and knives come into the county buildings. Let me just paraphrase what he said. Only the criminals are bringing weapons into our buildings now. Let me just say that again. Only the criminals are bringing weapons into our buildings now. That's a fact. That's a fact. Only the criminals are bringing weapons in now. What we're advocating tonight is to make it so that criminals and law-abiding citizens are bringing weapons in, okay? So that now there is at least an equalizer, so that when a criminal brings a weapon in, there may be someone that's a law-abiding citizen who may be packing, that's there. Because right now, there's not a sheriff's deputy in every one of our public buildings. But there might be someone there who is legally carrying that could intercede in the event that something happens. Because right now we know that weapons are coming into our buildings. Now the last point I was going to make is that you heard from a law enforcement officer today, someone who practices this, someone who teaches this. Now there's no such thing as a perfect situation in training concealed carry. But I will tell you that these folks go through an enormous vetting process. And these are people, there are several of us that are sitting around this table that are concealed carry permit holders. I will tell you that these are vetted people. They're as stable, they're as rock solid when it comes to use of these sidearms as you're going to find. And I can't imagine a better extension of public safety than you're going to find in concealed carry holders. So, you're not going to get a better situation in terms of extending public safety and in terms of value in extending public safety than you can get from concealed carry. Now, there are methods by which we could implement that we don't have to immediately, extend this out countywide in every building. There are methods of implementation. We could take it under consideration. I dare say it won't get a unanimous vote tonight, but we could evaluate a way of implementing so that we do pass the resolution in 2 consecutive meetings, and that we do empower the county manager to look at a method of implementation incrementally, so that we do it in the parks, so we get in compliance with the law, by the way. We're out of compliance with the state law now. We need to get back in compliance. We implement over time so that we give social services and CPS the attempt over a period of a month or two to get in compliance and and to put into practice what we need to do incrementally, so they get used to the notion of having concealed carry implemented there. But where other departments are more ready, like the Department of Health, there's more rapid implementation in that department. But we don't have to do it, at the same instant in all departments across the county. That we can implement over time incrementally around the county. But I've said my piece.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would first and foremost like to hear from the manager on this recommendation made in our agenda package. I'd also like to hear from HR representing the personnel staff and as well our county attorney. But before either one of them starts, I'd like to ask the health director, what action did you take or your nurses take when they saw the weapons, if any? Or what action did you take, if any? I want to know how we're handling it. If you finding it and you know it's here, then tell me how you're handling it, what we're doing.
The nurses, if they see something like that, ask that person to take it back outside and put it in their car before they'll continue their exam or doing whatever they're planning to do.
Okay.
That's all that they could do at this point. And
Well, I don't know that. That's what I want to hear from.
So has anybody
Yeah,
ever
I think there's
refused
a-
to do that?
not to my knowledge. But I don't think they ask every single person to do that, to tell you the truth. They just, if there's no tension, if people are just there in routine, visit, and it's just a coincidence that they see a weapon, rather than escalate it, they just go on with their business. But I have asked them since I learned this to let me know about this so that I'm aware of it, because I said, y'all haven't told me this before. I don't go in the exam rooms with them, so I don't know what's going on. So I've asked them to let me know, and they do occasionally ask someone to take, I know within the last couple of weeks, there was someone with a large knife, and they asked them to take that knife back out to their car before they continued with the exam.
What was it? Do you know if the person was an aggressor or a victim? Do you know either one?
Well, there wasn't an incident ongoing. They just observed that they were carrying this thing, so.
Well, sometimes victims bring weapons to protect themselves as they go back and forth. I just didn't know if you could ask that question or not. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else,
Mr. Crumpton, HR.
Okay. Excuse me, before you start.
Yes, sir.
In front of you, our attorney has
Yeah.
given us a sheet of laws, so I don't know whether you saw that or not. That's already done.
Yes, sir. I held a meeting with all the department heads and supervisors and managers that wanted to attend. We had James Estes, who's a certified concealed carry instructor, come and just give a 45-minute presentation on what concealed carry was all about, and gave the folks in that room an opportunity to discuss their concerns about allowing concealed carry. I think it's a majority opinion of employees that they would prefer not to have weapons in the workplace, whether concealed or not. However, I think their biggest concern was open carry coming into the buildings, because open carry, you don't have to have a permit. And then the second thing was actually more concerned about their fellow employees than it was about the general public. And I think the reason being is we have had some incidents of where discipline had to be taken or that kind of thing, and I think supervisors and managers are concerned about disciplining an employee who may be carrying concealed, and how to handle that situation, which is, I think, a legitimate concern, because are you more apt to follow through with discipline if that person's carrying or not carrying? That's a consideration. So I think there's a lot of I think there's still a lot of education that needs to go on if this passes tonight, to make sure our employees are feeling comfortable with that situation. That's why I went ahead and gave you some of the rules that I would put in place for employee concealed carry. And as you can see, it's much more restrictive than the law. And the reason is I feel that we're responsible for our employees, and we're responsible for our employees' action with the citizens. And that's where we have liability, is, our employees' actions and what they might do in a situation. So the policies I put forward there were really to protect the county and to protect the employees and try to give the employees a sense that management was trying to manage that situation.
That's the one starting on page 31.
Yes, sir. So, I kind of, and this is a personal opinion, it's not opinion of the employees, so I probably need to qualify that, is I feel probably more comfortable today with concealed carry than I did 30 days ago. And that's just because, I've done a lot of research, talked to a lot of people about it. Deputy Estes made me feel a lot better about it, and talking to him in private about how to go through the process and that kind of thing. But I felt like if we were going to address concealed carry, we had to address open carry, it was kind of amazing that we had not up to this point, that we did not have an ordinance that covered, such an action and would give the sheriff and local law enforcement a tool to use to be a deterrent as well, locally.
Open carry can also for illegal concealed carry.
Yes, sir, or illegal concealed. It is illegal to carry concealed without a permit in this state. I did find that out from Detective Estes, so, he gave a very good presentation, I thought. But I think we can't, the employees, I was raised away that guns were bad. And I think you have to understand that a majority of employees were raised that way as well, and are just downright scared of guns, no matter who's carrying those guns, whether they're law-abiding citizens or anybody. They see a gun, they're going to be scared. So I think it's kind of unrealistic to believe that if we pass this, that all of a sudden our employees are going to be okay with the change in this law.
Crystal, Crystal, there's a seat up front here if you want.
She has Roger with her. So.
Oh.
There, okay. And so I just, in their defense, I think it's going to be a tough adjustment. Doing it phased, I think, makes it difficult, actually. In talking with the other county managers who have done this, I haven't talked to Rowan County, who just went through it. But I did. I'm good friends with the Henderson County manager. I'm good friends with the Alamance County manager. So we've had several discussions about it. They actually both recommended if you do it, you got to do it, because saying, okay, this building is and this building isn't, just creates confusion. So you go ahead and implement it, and if you notice that, there are still buildings that the county owns that concealed carry is not allowed. The courthouse would be one of them. General services, because of the inmates that we use at general services, they're in and out. We could have problems with our contract with the state. Animal control the same way. So there still are some restrictions, and I think it's better to, if we pass it all at once, to educate the citizens and the employees about it all at one time, instead of trying to do that. I know Rowan County's original proposal was to do a phased-in approach. I don't know what they ended up passing, but
Well, you could actually take some lead time though and educate people. You don't have to do it instantaneously.
that's right. You could make it effective January 1st, and take that and add that to it, and not make it effective immediately upon the second reading. And the second reading isn't going to occur till October 6th, so we still have 4 weeks to the second reading. But
Mrs. Short? Do you have some questions for her?
Well, she represents HR. She is HR, and the people, I just want to hear
Yes,
what's
sir.
her findings.
I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of people. I mean, they talk to me all the time about this, and as Mr. Crumpton pointed out, the open carry is a big issue for our employees, because they're concerned if you take down the signs, you can walk in this building and have any kind of weapon you want. And that is a concern of people. They wanna know what's gonna happen when we take down the signs. Also, I think morale is gonna really go down if we just jump into this. I think we've gotta think about employees' morale and what it's gonna do to the employees, because they're really, some of them are really scared. Some of them have talked about leaving here if we do this. So we really have to think about the morale of the employees. And again, you're gonna have to teach the people, like Mr. Crumpton had them come in and talk to us and tell us things. And I'm also thinking about productivity of our employees, because if some of our employees, I've been told, and even in my own department, if I know you've got a gun, I'm not gonna feel as comfortable talking to you as I would if you didn't have a gun. Is productivity gonna go down? Those are the things that we really have to look at, and how we present this to the employees and how we go about it with our employees. If we just pass it and put it in without doing all of these things, I think we're gonna have some problems.
Do you think though, if we had a deputy in the departments, it would be a different scenario? Would that help with
The majority of the people would probably feel better about it if they had concealed carry and there was a deputy on site too.
No, I mean, if we didn't have the concealed carry, but instead, in place of, we put a deputy there for their safety.
In our employee survey, that was a big thing, that they wanted security. They wanted more security in this building. This was the biggest building here. And also, I think when we're saying that we can't do it at general services or we can't do it at senior services, you're still gonna have some disgruntled employees, because some of them have told me they have concealed carry. So, and they're saying, well, we won't get to carry the gun because of inmates or because of this or that. So that's gonna be a problem.
But having a deputy would address that, because
Yes.
they could be on site.
I mean, yes, I mean, that's true.
Okay, I think, Attorney, Gary?
Yes, the first thing I want to point out is that every weapon other than a handgun cannot be carried concealed. It's expressly prohibited by statute, so we're only truly discussing handguns at this point. My concern would simply be that we have rules in place that address situations that may arise from the employee perspective. So for instance, discipline if something happens and the handgun becomes not concealed, or a situation in which we're trying to discipline a person and, do you want to allow handguns in a disciplinary hearing? Those are situations that need to be addressed, and I think giving the county manager the authority to amend the personnel policy to cover those situations helps us out from a liability perspective.
One question I wanted to ask. Is it correct that if it's passed and I have concealed carry, even though I may be an employee, I can now walk into the building with it? And the most important part of that is that it must be on my person at all times?
And it must be concealed. Yes, correct.
So, as a former manager and supervisor, I tell you to be very careful the time you decide to discipline a person, or to confront them on any issues. And that's one of my greatest concerns. As I mentioned to HR, there are some folks who could be overtaken very easily having a weapon on their possession. I heard the officers speak about the criminal. Well, they shoot policemen too, and they carry. So a gun is a gun, and the use is only as good as the person behind the weapon.
Let me say something. Now, in the courthouse, you're not allowed to possess guns. I just want to point out that you have deputies there all the time. They're armed. They're sitting outside the courtroom. The sheriff's department is right there, and the only person that's allowed to still have a gun in that courtroom is who?
Judge Jones.
Judge. And he's got all that protection around him, but he still wants to carry his own. It's interesting.
He's also a target.
Gave himself the right to do so.
They still get shot.
Right, he's also one of the targets.
Mr. Chairman.
I just want to make a personal.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Commissioner Schmidt. Oh, yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Ms. Shearer coming forward and addressing issues, and I do respect the position she has simply because of what she does. And I find it amazing that she doesn't have protection when she's going out interceding on families. But she did make some very bold, disingenuous statements. She basically insulted about 99.88% of concealed carry holders in this country. Less than let me rephrase that. Less than 0.002% of concealed carry holders since it's been inducted in this country have lost their permits for violating the law.
Mr. Chair,
Excuse me,
this man is out of order in doing that sort of thing.
I'm-
A staff, that's just improper on its
He's
face.
giving some statistics, Mr. Reed, you're out of order.
I don't think I'm out of order. I think he is picking out, he's picking out a staff person.
Okay, but he's.
He can do his
she's using
statistics
some of the
without her
information,
name.
Just don't
He
say
can
it's-
do it without her name.
She was representing those who were.
It doesn't matter who she represents.
I apologize for using her name. Okay. The other point was schools cannot have weapons. As a former teacher in a public high school, I carried into this classroom military-style assault weapons in the classroom. Look up the statute. You can do it. And I taught a class with them more than once. And every time the principal loved to come to my class for that one. And also, in the situation of being in combat and having to discipline armed soldiers, there is a form of leadership style and art that you learn as a military leader. So therefore, it can be done using the proper tact and discipline. So I'm just find that amazing that we can't discipline people. But the insult on the 99.88% of concealed carry holders. In closing, Mr. Chairman, in the book of Luke, chapter 22, verse 36, Jesus said to his disciples, and I quote, "But now let him who has a purse take it, and likewise a bag, and let him who has no sword sell his mantle and buy one." Unquote. Verse 38, and they said, "Look, Lord, here are 2 swords." And he said to them, "It is enough." If Jesus could trust his disciples with arms, I know that the 7 commissioners here can trust law-abiding citizens as well.
Excuse me, this is a board meeting, and we don't need comments from the audience, all right?
I really wish,
It will be dismissed.
I really wish that Commissioner Smith wouldn't have used scripture to try to defend what he's trying to implement. However, I'm not going to get into that battle with him. But there's somewhere that it says as well, I'm not going to get into that because we will be debating that, and it's not time for that. But I do want to say on a personal note that it would behoove me to know that our county employees are having to have this fear of coming to work. And I don't think that the county commissioners should put them in that kind of position, or anybody for that matter. I just want to make this one little point because my spouse was at Sumitomo some years ago, and that was a young man who came in and killed 3 and wounded some others. The one thing I'm trying to say is that I immediately told my wife to get her belongings and get away from that place because of that very thing of people shooting the place up. And if my wife was, or my spouse was working for the county and we passed this resolution, I would immediately tell her to find another job. I would not want those people or my spouse or any of my family to be in a position to be frightened. Now, I'm not against concealed weapons, but I don't think that they should be in the public place in a government facility where we have to come in. I don't even want to go into a place and sit down beside 4 or 5 in a restaurant who's sitting down eating. If I mess around or somehow stumble and fall on someone, they may have a potential to just go off. You don't know the intentions. We don't know whether they're under the influence or anything. And I'm not trying to say this in terms of trying to make anyone feel demeanored or bad or any way, but I just want us to do what's right. And when we start trying to quote scripture to make this benefit us, then I think that's not giving our scripture and our text and our Lord the rightful benefit and being truthful to what the word says.
Okay, Amy?
One of the things, switching gears a little bit, in talking to a lot of our employees and some law enforcement officials, you know, our job is to protect the employees and the citizens, and in trying to make this decision, there's a lot of what ifs. You know, what if we decide to do this? What if we decide to do that? What if we direct the manager to do certain things in our policy statements? But I know you guys are getting tired of hearing this, but I keep going back to concealed carry is not the answer for the problem that we're trying to solve. A well-trained deputy is the answer, because one employee put this to me, and it made the case perfectly. She said, what if we do have a bad situation in our department and we feel threatened? And we have one, maybe two employees in our department that are concealed carry, and they have it with them in the office. And they come out to try to protect the people there. And at the same time, somebody else is doing the very thing they need to be doing. They're calling 911. And a deputy or a Sanford police officer, whoever can get here the fastest, shows up on the scene. They don't know every employee that we have. All they've been told is there is an individual with a gun and they're threatening people in a county office. If that deputy or that police officer comes on the scene, how are they gonna know in those split seconds if that person with the gun is our employee or the bad person? We're setting up our employees to be in dangerous situations when they may be trying to help. So again, I go back to, I'm just gonna call it like I said, it's 2 months before the election. I think this is a political thing that all of a sudden popped up after the survey. Now, if you want to play politics, that's fine. That's your game. It has been since I got back on the board. But if we really are about public safety and the security of the people in this county, let's send this resolution and put the deputies in the departments. Because, Jim, you talk about, you know, we can't get, I'm sorry, it's been brought up that we can't get deputies in, you know, right away, that concealed carry is the answer. And then 5 minutes later, we talk about incrementally implementing this over 1 or 2 months. I am certain that the sheriff's office can work with the county manager, and we can have something in place within a week or two of tonight, if we decide to address this like we need to be addressed.
Mr. Chairman, I would just very quickly, I would just offer that we just don't have the budget. I don't think we have the budget to safeguard every county building like we did for all the schools. There's no way we're gonna extend the budget to do that. Secondly, I would offer that we're not talking about our children here. We're talking about mature county staff that have the ability, and we have the reasonable people that have the ability, and many of whom are already concealed carry holders that could simply bring these concealed carry weapons to work. And in other cases, responsible citizens are coming into county buildings to conduct business that would be well armed, you know, just to simply concealed carry with them, or have weapons in their vehicles that are secured in their vehicles. So this is just simply an additional layer of protection that would be affording that's a great value to the county without increasing the county budget. This is the economy. This is one of the great things that our founding fathers you know, founded this country upon, one of the principles of, you know, Second Amendment principles of the country. You know, one of the great things that made this country great. And I just think, you know, getting back in touch with our roots is not a bad thing.
Okay, I think everybody's had a chance to debate. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
No. Okay, so 4-3. Resolution passes for the second reading. Okay, let's go to appointment to board and commissions.
Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, we are slowly filling our board appointments, slowly, but we're sitting there. On page 37 of your agenda package, you'll see an application for the RN vacant position on the Board of Health. So I'm asking you to consider that appointment.
We just had the one, right?
Just the one, and I still need an engineer, but we'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
You can coax Martha to come back.
Okay, what's the,
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the application for the nurse's position on Board of Health.
okay, we have a motion, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Okay.
On page 40, you will see an application for the Fire Advisory Board for the general public position that's vacant, and this will get this board full.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend the approval of Eric Matilda.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous?
On page 42, you will see an application for the Sanford Board of Adjustments. This is the vacant, well, there's one vacant position, but that will complete that board.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Ronald Willett for the Board of Adjustments.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I need to make a correction on the Rest Home Nursing Home Advisory Board. You will see, starting on page 44, 45, and 46, 3 applications. But during your August 4th meeting, the meeting that I wasn't here, I incorrectly put Mr. Willett's application in for the Rest Home Nursing Home Board. That wasn't what he asked for. He wanted the Board of Adjustments. He works in Raleigh during the day and cannot make those daytime meetings.
Okay.
So I'm asking you to officially remove him from the Rest Home Board, and you've already put him on the Sanford Board of Adjustments.
So I would move to remove him from the Rest Home Advisory Board.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then you've got 3 applications, 44, 45, and 46,
Now, does
to
one of them-
replace Mr. Willett.
Does one of them have to be an alternate?
No, well, if you move the alternate up, then one of these 3 can be put in the alternate position.
Okay, so what do you recommend?
So,
I'm not recommending anything since I messed it up the last time.
I would recommend we move that up as from alternate to vacancy and then select one of the others to fill the alternate position.
You want a recommendation?
No, that's fine with me. What are you doing?
So we gotta figure out which one to recommend for the alternate position.
Okay,
Well, first, let's vote on that, moving the alternate up, if you don't mind.
okay, I have a motion.
I move to move Linda McCormick up to principal position.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And then we have one to fill with Jeremy McLean.
Shirley Swan.
Grace Taylor.
That was on page 44, the one that you're missing.
Shirley Swan.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Do I have nominations?
I would move to make Shirley Swan and Grace Taylor the principals, and to make,
We only have
We
one
only
vacancy,
have one,
that's
it's
an
the alternate
alternate vacancy.
position. We just need one.
just need one for the alternate.
Yeah.
You move the alternate
Grace
up to
Taylor.
the full-time, so now we have
Grace
just the
Yeah,
vacant.
I was just gonna help Jim out with Grace Taylor.
Okay. Whatever.
Grace Taylor?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have a nomination? Okay, then, those in favor of Grace, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you, that takes care of it. We still have vacancies on the,
Mental Health
EAD
Board.
from the East Sanford, the Mental Health Board, yes, the Environmental Review and Advisory Committee, and the Board of Health.
We just lost another one off the environmental
Yeah.
board too, so we need 2 or 3 there.
So we need two, I think 2 there. So we're slowly getting it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gaten. Okay, appointment to local fireman's relief board. Donald Andrews is, I think he said sick or had something else doing.
He is sick.
And, Shane, you get thoughts?
I get to be the lucky person tonight. We're seeking the appointment of 2 trustees to the local Farmers Relief Fund. As you can see, in 2013, Commissioner Smith and Donald Andrews were appointed for 6 of the 7 departments. And then there was one change with the Cape Fear Department since Donald serves on the board of directors at Cape Fear.
Yeah, I was going to serve on that one with Commissioner Smith, so. And I'll be going off the board, so the question I have, maybe you can answer that. Do we continue on until I come off the board, or do we need that appointment now?
That's the pleasure of the board
Yeah, it is.
at this point, I believe. It's really up to the board at this point. They can make the next appointment subject to, December 1st and allow you to stay on till December 1st. I know Commissioner Dalrymple has served on the Cape Fear Department Board prior, and I think she resides in that district. So if you want to appoint her to that board December 1st, that way they have, the appointment, and then keep Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Andrews on the full board.
I know we've never had meetings since I've been on the board, so.
So that's a good thing.
Very good, right. We don't hold this meeting.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? I mean, I don't need to stay on there if you want to appoint somebody.
What's your pleasure? We're gonna accommodate you.
Seeing that I had to take Amy's place on the Tarpo board, I nominate Amy Dalrymple, Commissioner.
For the Cape Fear Board.
Yeah.
Well, and I got my ethics letter in the mail too.
Did you? By the way, that was fine if you don't get that in.
No, I got it in. They gave me an evaluation.
Oh, okay. So, I just didn't come off if you guys want to appoint Amy. So I need a motion?
You did.
Just made a motion.
Okay. So any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And a
Thank
second
you.
motion, second motion to keep Commissioner Smith and Donald Andrews on the, I guess that's the volunteer fire
Yes.
Okay.
department.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane, appreciate you coming. I'm gonna take 10 minutes, break, I'm sorry. But, so we'll start with scattered site houses, right?
I told him.
Item of business is Karen Kennedy, please, bid for 2011 scattered site housing rec program.
Good evening. You have in your package information on a bid request that we solicited for what we hoped was going to be the last home in our project, and we've had some other glitches come up. But this particular bid was for 409 Price Street. We advertised in the paper, we did the state's interactive purchasing system, and we emailed to 9 firms. And we received the 4 that are on the bid tabulation that you have in your package, I think given to you today. And we would like to recommend award to Chuck Construction of Sanford, North Carolina, who has done work in our program before.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the recommendation of Ms. Kennedy.
Okay, any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Good, thank you. I wanted to give you a little update on the activity with this project, because we should have been winding down, as I told you, but we had a property owner who, after we'd gone through the work right up, the bidding process, the legal paperwork, getting his family down, agreeing, just decided that he didn't want to do it. So that means we've got to pick one more home. The bad news is we've gone through the alternate list that the commissioners approved a few years ago, so I'll be coming back to you with another list of applicants and pick one for one more home. So we've had to ask for an extension to the state, and Mr. Parks signed that request paperwork. Because of all the glitches that have happened, our consulting firm obviously is going to ask for some more admin money, and justifiably so. They've had to go through some additional steps, so you'll be seeing that. Mr. Crumpton and I will be talking about that very soon, about that amendment. So I wanted to give you an idea. And the other really exciting news for Lisa Mentor and I is we are getting audited on this project on September 23rd. So I feel certain that it will go well, but it's always a real tense day when they're here going through the files and making sure everything's okay. So we will let you know the outcome of that audit after that. It'll be my third audit in a month, so.
I got a quick question. I got a quick question for you. I think a few years ago, the sheriff was also taking the names of folks in the county that might be interested in. Does he still do that?
I pleasantly get a lot of referrals from the enrichment center.
Okay.
And from a sheriff's member that goes to the enrichment center. So yes, I still do get referrals from them.
Okay,
My waiting list is about up to 130 in there.
All right. Occasionally, I'd like to see something happen out in the county.
Yeah.
If we got one. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, very good, thanks, Gary. Okay, update from Environmental Review and Advisory Committee, April Marshall.
Thank you all for having us here. I'm April Montgomery, 1803 Wilkins Drive in Sanford. I'm the chairperson of the Environmental Review and Advisory Committee. And I want to just recognize quickly, we have several members of the committee in the audience. You guys just want to raise your hand or stand or something so you know that I don't work alone. This is the work of a group. So the ERAC has been around for a year and a half now, something about that. And this is the first time that we've come to you, and we're coming to you with recommendations on the draft MEC rules. I want to be clear that these recommendations, and some of them are just points of interest, maybe not a direct recommendation, are not based on the broad scope of hydraulic fracturing in North Carolina, but just on the rules as proposed by the MEC. And just in terms of things that we think are unique to the county, for the county to consider based on what we know about the rules and what we know about the county's ability to interact with those rules. I think all of you got some of this information in your packet, but I'll just briefly go through so you understand where we were coming from. We basically had, under the MEC rules, in areas where the MEC has authority. So these are 3 areas where we think the county could make recommendations. Those recommendations do have to be filed by the 30th. The first was local government coordination and participation. And we felt like there was a lack of coordination between what happens at the state level as it relates to these permits and what the interaction is at the local level. And we thought there were 3 ideas of how this could be addressed. The first, and I will skip the reading out the whole reference because you all have it in front of you, but they list agencies that will be contacted when a permit is submitted. The local government is not included on that list. And we thought, just for the purposes of public information, a local government should be notified when that happens. So if someone files for a mining permit in Lee County, the Lee County manager or Lee County Board of Commissioners would receive notice. We seemed like that seemed like a reasonable person, or potentially the county health director. That could be up to the discretion of the local government to identify that entity. The second point is under financial assurance. And there are a series of bonds, I won't go through all of them, but there are a series of bonds that are posted by an applicant when they apply for a mining permit. The state is the entity that's named in that bond, and we felt it might be appropriate for the local government to also be named. Basically, there's a security in that, not just because it's a bond, but because if a bond doesn't specifically state how that money is to be used in addressing the issue that has triggered the bond, then the state completely controls how that money is spent. We feel like if that application is happening in Lee County, then Lee County should have some oversight or consideration in how that bond is spent when that is exercised. So that's the second point. And then each local government with active applications or operations under these rules may oppose a liaison. And DENR should recognize that liaison as a point of contact for monitoring, reporting on activities within their physical jurisdiction. So again, this just gets to local government coordination and identification. So if a county says, listen, for our applications, this is our liaison, this is our point person, then DENR acknowledges that the local government has the right to assign that person and will share all information that is not trade secret to that liaison to share with the county. And whether that is, again, the county manager, the health director, someone on the board of commissioners, that's up to each local government to identify. The second issue or area of concern we had was water and waste. And how that will be handled is unique to each application in the rules, and we understand that the scale of an operation may create different scenarios for how you address those things. But again, we have some recommendations. The first deals with exploration and production waste management plans, which are part of an application. So each application that comes in will have a plan for how they're going to do waste. The MEC hasn't gone out and said, here's how you're going to address waste. Each applicant, it's on them to address that plan. And we agree that that seems appropriate, but we think that it should always include a tracking or audit procedure for waste to be treated off-site. And this should include routes for off-site treatment to be filed under seal with the local government liaison. So let's say that there is a mining facility that's happening in Lee County, but there's no on-site waste treatment. So they're going to package all that in a truck. They're going to drive it to wherever that waste is, which means it's going to be on our highways and roads, and we ought to know when that's occurring and what those routes are. And it doesn't have to be public information, but there ought to be a liaison in the county that's aware when these things are being transported, because they are waste, and that person should be aware of what those routes are so that we can be aware if there is an incident or an accident that may be what's involved. So that was the first point under that. We had some ongoing conversation about open pit storage. And basically what we settled on was if we're within 1/2 mile of a major waterway, we should restrict open pit storage. So basically if they are containing waste on site and they're doing so in an open pit, there are industry guidelines on how that can happen safely, but we think there should be special consideration to waterways. In Lee County, that's particularly important when you look at how much intake we have for our water treatment close to waterways along the Deep River, which is also some of the areas of interest for this. We think that that would be an extra protection that the MEC should consider in their rules. The third point has to do with baseline testing for water wells. And currently, the rules state, within 1/2 mile of the gas wellhead that you would have testing. We think that this should also include within 500 feet of the horizontal legs. So as you understand fracking, there's the point where the well goes down. And there is a 1/2 mile radius where that point is, where all those wells will be tested. However, you can go out miles horizontally, and there is no provision in the rules for testing. So it could be going under your well, granted, several thousand feet down, and you were never a candidate for testing before that started. And we think that it should include the horizontal lines, but a narrower space within 500 feet of that. We also think the rule should specify that the applicant or operator is required to supply water if its operations have contaminated the well until the problem is rectified. The rules certainly read like this is implied, but we think it's wiser for it to be specifically stated in that. And then the third area was miscellaneous. And so they didn't really fit under those other two headings. But the first was applicants and operators should offer cuttings, logs, cores, and other well information to the State Geological Survey within 5 years of well completion. This is just public information, but it's part of our natural history. And there are things that they're gonna be extracting out of the ground that have important information, and maybe it should go to the state geologist. We had some debate as to which state university it should go to, and we decided that we weren't gonna go that direction. But just from a scientific perspective, this seemed interesting. And then the other had to do with reviews and inspections. The rules don't specifically state that same-day reviews and inspections are included in the rules, but we think they should. We understand that it's probably too strict or too burdensome to have someone just show up at the gate and say, we're here to do an inspection, but there ought to be some ability to do a same-day inspection. Call in the morning, we're coming down that afternoon, because that's just, you know, part of doing good business. So those are the areas that are within MEC authority, and those are the recommendations that we're advising the Board of Commissioners to provide as recommendations within the comment period, which ends September 30th. The second area that we addressed here is really outside of MEC authority. So we think the county should be, the Board of Commissioners should be aware of these things. They were things that came up as areas of concern to us when we were reviewing these rules, but it's not specific within the MEC's authority for them to address them. So you should be aware of them, and you know, maybe through other legislative channels or rulemaking, consider these as this industry moves forward. The first is emergency responders, and admittedly, we didn't have time to get with the county emergency responders, I don't think.
He's there.
Oh, he's still here, good. So talk to him. But the two areas that we saw of concern were that they're appropriate training. You know, all emergency responders in areas where permits are proposed should receive control response contractor training certification prior to the beginning of drilling activities. Because we are all county taxpayers, we decided that this training should be provided by the state of North Carolina, and the local government that employs the responders will be reimbursed for all expenses associated with the training. So if the state's going to control this process, and the state's going to set the rules, but the county is the first responder, the state needs to be reimbursing the county to make sure that our responders are getting the appropriate training, because it's not, you know, they shouldn't be sent in unprepared. And then we also talked about barriers and proper signage to warn any person approaching of the hazard. Also with a contact number for the person in charge, or point of contact in charge of this location, be available and valid. Again, there may be other laws that specifically address this, but we thought it was important to bring your attention to this too, that signage should be very important, as there may be people on site in an emergency that aren't fully aware of what is out there. The second area of concern outside of MEC authority was air quality. And we think that a percentage of application fees should be set aside for air monitoring equipment and training for local government staff to install, operate, and maintain these stations. And information gathered from these stations should be publicly available. The MEC specifically does not address air quality. That's because DENR does that already. I can tell you that the one item that we've had related to air quality in the county since the ERAC has been together, I do not feel DENR has responded adequately to that issue. We're concerned about their ability to respond in a timely and thorough fashion to these things, and think that as air quality is a big issue addressed with mining and extraction, that the county be prepared to handle some of that on their own. And we thought that the application fees might be a good way to send funding to the local governments to do that. And then this third is a miscellaneous point. It doesn't fall under a particular heading, but it has to deal with what I know is very controversial of surface versus subsurface rights. And basically we feel that applicants and operators should not be allowed without permission to access the surface of property where they only have land agreements with subsurface owners, unless that right is specifically stated in the deed separating the surface and the subsurface rights. That's very technical. It's going to be hard to figure out, but we think as a property rights issue for Lee County residents, the way the rules read now is if you do not have your subsurface rights, they simply provide you notice, but they can still access the surface. And we think that there should have to be consent from the surface owner if they are going to be present on the surface, even if it's for inspection. Those are all our comments. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, have these been provided to the Oil and Gas Commission?
No, because you provide them to the Oil and Gas Commission.
I'm sorry?
We were recommending that you provide them to the Oil and Gas Commission.
Okay.
They're your advisory board, so they're making the recommendation to this board, asking you to forward these to the Oil and Mining Commission.
Okay,
So here's some
feedback.
Let me, I move that we accept these recommendations and send them forward.
Okay, we have a motion, go ahead, Jim.
No, he's got a motion, so.
Well, that's okay, you can ask questions.
Okay, so here's some feedback on that motion. I sat through the Environmental Review and Advisory Committee meeting, and we had a very good discussion about this, and I think they've done a magnificent job of collating, of synthesizing a lot of the MEC's work. There's some really good content here, and much of this is worthy of consideration of the Mining and Energy Commission. I do think there's a couple of points in here that probably need to be tightened up. For example, the signage point, that is within the MEX authority. That's not external to the MEX authority. So that actually should be included in the MEX authority, that particular comment. That's not something the legislature has to deal with. The Mining and Energy Commission does have authority to deal with signage, and actually does deal with signage in several other areas. The air quality issue is there's a number, it's actually in the Mining and Energy Commission's authority to some extent. It's also under the EMC's authority and the legislature's authority, so it's kind of all over the map. So that one's kind of tough. Surface versus subsurface, it's still within the Mining and Energy Commission's authority to some extent, but that's a really difficult one, and I'm not sure you really want to go there because it's a legal matter. It's really the Attorney General's office is where that rests. And we can certainly provide comment to the Attorney General and to the legislature, but there's not much we can do about where the law sits today with regard to contract law and mineral rights. That's really something that the Mining and Energy Commission cannot touch beyond what compulsory pooling allows, and that's within the commission. So, but these other comments that April just gave us are all very worthy for consideration. Now, the question before our body is whether or not we want to address these as a body to the Mining and Energy Commission as a resolution and do it as a corporate body, or whether we would prefer to do that as just a written input on the part of one individual. It has the same weight coming from an individual. It doesn't have any different weight. It'll be considered by the commission, and it'll be responded to. Every comment that's provided will be responded to, will be considered with the same weight. So either way, it'll get the same weight. We can do it we can vote it as a submission, and each and every comment that's provided to the Mining and Energy Commission will be considered and will be responded to.
I would suggest that we do it as a body. I mean, every other resolution or anything that we send forth, we always do it as a body.
Okay.
So I think we ought to make that Commissioner Reeves has already made the motion, and I think we ought to do it as a body.
And for the attorney, I have to recuse myself from this vote. So.
Yeah, I was gonna recommend that.
Yeah, I have to.
So you just want to make that change?
Do they need to vote to?
Yes, you need to ask to be recused.
Yeah, well, if you guys want to put that,
All right,
there's already a motion on the
I need
table.
a motion to recuse Jim. Okay, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Jim's recused.
I hadn't finished, I said, for all those who. Whatever.
All right, so we have a motion.
I just wanted to clarify, Commissioner Womack, are you suggesting that, so basically what we're recommending the Board of Commissioners submit as their resolution is everything above areas outside MEC authority, but it sounds like you're saying item 2, recommendation under emergency responder, should actually move up, and the signage should be included as part of the recommendation.
Yes, I think signage is certainly within the MEC's authority. I would include the air quality comment there as well, and just put a caveat there that say those parts that are outside the MEX authority to be forwarded to the legislature for action. Just so we can action the part that we have authority to and pass the rest of it to the General Assembly.
You just want to amend it, Mr. Reeves?
Yeah.
And Mr. Reeves would further amend that, where it comes to the surface versus the subsurface, if we could send a resolution to the Attorney General and the legislature, that's
We could actually include all of that in the same resolution and just address the Attorney General as well, saying that's a concern that we have about contract law and surface versus subsurface, and include them in that and address that to them.
Sorry to.
No.
No, that'd be good. And I do agree. I think the ERAC's done a magnificent job, and the level of scientific excellence and the level of scrutiny. Brian and who was the other committee chair? Matt. Matt and Brian both did a magnificent job of leading the committees within the ERAC, and April's doing a good job of leading the overall committee.
It is a good job, April.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as, I guess, as amended? Yes. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay. Next one is proposal for 2014 household hazardous waste collection. Mr. Russell Spivey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, Mr. County Manager, and Attorney. Mr. Cherry's on vacation, so I'm stepping forward tonight to discuss this. Making
Day off, I know,
yeah, he's a New York visiting family, and I hope he's having a good time. He's close to 9, and I hope he gets to go there and enjoy himself. Well deserved. Joe's put a lot of hard work in this program. We spent an ongoing event ever since 2001. We do it yearly, and it's according to the times that we can get at the Dennis Woodford Civic Center. It's usually by the end or mid of October. It's October 25th of this year, 2014, from 9 to 1. It's a great thing that we offer to the residents of Lee County to be able to get rid of solid waste. Household waste products that you just can't throw away. Also, the state will have someone there to take pesticides from farmers as well. But I'm recommending that we go with EcoFlow. Is in your package, you can see we had 4 people that had bid on, 3 bid on it, 1 not, no bidder. But last year we did have EcoFlow. They done a good job, and we're recommending that we go forward for them this year.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve EcoFlow as the contractor for waste removal.
Okay, any discussion? Heard the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Russ.
Okay, senior health insurance information grant. Is that? Sorry, did I miss one?
That's way expansion.
Okay, check, I'm sorry. Filter expansion for county communication systems.
Good evening. We're seeking the approval to purchase Comprod UHF filter system for our county radio system. We have a state contract price through the authorized vendor for $13,116.50. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have on it.
Okay, tell me what this is exactly.
Well, it's not an oil filter, so that's.
I knew that.
These are high alloy tub filters. If you go back 20 years ago, if you had 10 radio channels, you had 10 repeaters, 10 antennas, 10 cables, 10 everything. Now we use a system that's more IP based. We use these filters to clean up the signals, and we're able to utilize 1 antenna, 1 cable, and put 20 channels on it. We have redundancy, John loves that word, redundancy built into it, so we have backup should we lose one of our coaxes, but it's just a way of making a more efficient radio system with a whole lot less cost.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, Ms. Debbie. Thank you.
Good evening. I bring before you a grant application tonight for $4,171 from the North Carolina Department of Insurance to be utilized for the outreach programs and volunteer recognition for the open enrollment program for Medicare Part D and for our SHIP Senior Health Insurance Information Program counselors. No matching funds are required. This is just additional funding to Lee County.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Deb. Okay, North Carolina Cardinal
Nope.
memorandum.
We moved. Move. Move on to the next one. We put that on
We
the
did that one.
consent agenda.
Extension of emergency medical services agreement between Lee County and Central Carolina Hospital. Mr. Crumpton.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Our agreement with Central Carolina Hospital for emergency medical services expires September 30, 2014. We're currently still negotiating our renewals on the agreement for the service and also the lease of the building that they occupy over by the hospital. So we weren't ready for this tonight, so we need to go ahead and sign this extension for 2 months so our attorney can finish negotiating this contract with them.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the extension of the contract with Central Carolina Community Hospital.
Any questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution awarding Lee County employees 2 additional vacation days at Christmas, Mr. Crum.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This was actually an idea I brought with me from Scotland County, where we went many years without giving our employees COLAs, and the chairman there, Chairman J.D. Willis, came up with this idea. And with not giving the COLA to the employees this year, I heard quite a bit about that and brought up this to our HR manager and first discussed it with the chairman and then decided to bring it forward to the board. Essentially what we're offering to the employees is 2 additional vacation days. Most employees will take those 2 vacation days on December 22nd and December 23rd. We essentially close the offices for the week of Christmas. Employees that for whatever reason have to work those 2 days will be able to take those 2 days between November 15th, 2014 and June 30th, 2015.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the resolution awarding Lee County employees 2 additional vacation days at Christmas.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to commend the county manager on thinking out of the box on that. I think that's a marvelous idea, and I know that's a downtime part of the year. He and the HR manager deserve to be applauded for that. That is a really good thing to do, and I know that's a good perk for the employees when we're still tight on our budget. Good thinking.
Thank you.
Okay. Budget amendment.
He says good.
Good evening. You have before you budget amendment number 09081403. In this budget amendment, we are appropriating additional $50 in revenue that we received from the Diener Communicable Disease Program. We're rolling over funds in the IT from last year's budget and IT department to this year's to cover the cost of the badge control system for the Government Center, Courthouse, and Summit Building. The project was approved last year but was not completed until this year. Social Services has several pots of restricted funding that needs to be rolled over from year to year. It's not spent, and then there was also a vehicle budgeted in last year, ordered in last year but not received until July of this year. So we had to roll those monies over. During the months of July and August, you approved several grant agreements for JCPC funds to pass through to us. Those are now being budgeted along with the administration budget that was approved. And then we are rolling over funds in the E911 fund to purchase the E911 Positron Viper system for the backup 911 system.
What is the backup 911?
No, sir, not completely. There is some other purchases that are being worked on right now. There's like, as Mr. Seagroves explained to me the other day, there's like 3 pieces to the puzzle. One is done, and this would be 2, and then there's still a third one with radios, if I understood it all correctly.
Very good. I was just hoping that would be all done.
You and me both.
We're getting close.
All right. Very good. All right. Any questions for Lisa? We need a motion?
Yes.
Move. Okay, move.
Move to approve the budget amendment.
All right. Any questions of Lisa or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
In your package on page 104, starts the monthly financial report for July 2014. Of course, if you'll please remember that sales tax revenue runs 3 months behind, so we've received no sales tax revenue for this fiscal year yet. What I have just passed out to you, we'll talk about in just a minute. That is for the last month of last fiscal year. Looking at revenues, you will see we are just very close to where we were the same time frame last year. Probably just a statistical difference. In reviewing expenditures, our target is 8.33% for the first month of the year. We are in several areas over that. A lot of that, as you hear me say, the first few months of the year relates to dues, maintenance contracts, insurance that we pay up front, and carry the costs for the several months to the budgets. So nobody that I was overly alarmed with at this point that's over. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have on the July report before I talk to you about sales tax.
Okay, you have any questions for Lisa? Okay, go ahead.
I just passed out the sales tax distribution. This past week, we received our final distribution for June. And so if you look on the top page there, you can see where we finished compared to budget and compared to our projections. As you will see, on Article 39 was the only one where we met our budgeted target. Everybody, all the other categories were under, and so overall we did not make budget. However, our projections, we did exceed those numbers. So that's where we finished this past year.
Pretty tight on what you projected. Man, that's soothsaying right there.
Well, I have to laugh.
How can you get any closer?
We had typically been getting our numbers a little bit early, and so we had our auditors in last week, and I was holding my breath hoping I would get the actual number. Well, it didn't come in as early as it had been, so I gave them a projection for June, and I was within $755.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I was like, whoa, I felt pretty good about our numbers. So the second page I passed out to you is just the Lee County just our portion of historical analysis. And as you know, we changed ad valorem, so these numbers are a little skewed because it looks like we increased like 12 to 13%. That's taken into that. So on the third page, I provided you the county-wide analysis, and I'm happy to say, after many, many months of me going, we aren't growing, that we did see some increase in our sales tax revenue, roughly around 3%. So I am tickled to say we did finish the year a little bit ahead of what I had anticipated and stuff. So hopefully those numbers will continue on into this fiscal year. We're still not seeing the growth that the state's seeing overall. The numbers that came in with the report finally were that maybe the state was seeing 4.54, I think, % growth. We're not there yet, but hopefully
they're seeing that in the big metropolitan areas.
Major metropolitan areas are growing right now at 5 to 7%.
That's right.
And that's what's pulling that Article 39 up.
That's right.
And then we pull the other articles down, it's our local sale taxes for many different reasons, not just the economy, are down.
Yeah.
So we're getting a lot more competition in surrounding counties, and we're starting to lose some of that sales to the surrounding counties. So it's more important than ever than people shopping at home.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, recommendation for a resolution for Bob Stevens.
Right, and what I'd just like to ask, I guess, of the board is maybe a motion to allow perhaps me and the county manager, the clerk, and the attorney to put together a resolution and have it printed up, and I'll get it framed, present him on Sunday for his retirement celebration Broadway.
You just make the request, I would think. Anybody object or oppose? Just make the request and get it
Okay,
done.
make a motion and we'll let your recommendations.
I'll make the motion.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, I move to empower Ms. Dalrymple and the county manager to put their heads together, come up with a suitably worded resolution to honor Bob Stevens for his many years of faithful service to the town of Broadway, and that they, I guess it's appropriate that you sign it, correct? And that they'll prepare that for your signature.
Okay, and
You just need a motion, you need to make a speech.
so, All right, so we have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. You got it, Amy.
Get that done.
Let me know. We'll get it signed. I'll be there also. By the way, that's at 2 o'clock, I believe. If I remember right. At Broadway Community Center. Okay. All right, Mr. Crumpton, County Manager's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It is with great pleasure that I let the board know that last week the DOT board accepted maintenance on the Clyde Ryan Road, and today, this afternoon, the barrels were moved and the road is open.
I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Crumpton for all his hard work and everybody else that helped him do that. That's been a big project.
It'll now be known as the John Crumpton Memorial Highway.
Or maybe Tenacity Drive.
Something. Thank Russell and Larry for all their help on that as well here at the end. It was a long project, 7 years. 7 years. So it was one of those things I inherited that I didn't know about when I took this job, and so
the Bob Hutes Alley.
yeah. So those two big things I needed to take care of have been taken care of finally. So anyway, thank to the DOT for rushing that through so that the road could open. And I know Caterpillar is already happy. They've already emailed me this afternoon.
Probably need to send a letter from the county to those at DOT that really push that forward for us if you could.
I'll be glad to do it. Do you want to sign it, sir?
Anybody have any problem with that?
Do you want to sign that letter? I'll write it. Okay, I'll get it done. All right. I wanted to bring the board up to date on the OT Sloan facility use study. A couple of months back, the board approved taking part in that study. The city and the county set up a committee of employees to develop an RFQ and accept proposals for conducting that study. I'm meeting with the city manager on Wednesday. I believe I'm going to be told that there's a recommendation. The recommendation is probably going to exceed the amount that we approved. So they're going to be requesting that the city and county interlocal committee get back together and discuss the new proposal, along with the city making us an offer on the Colon Road lift station. So those will be 2 items for that committee. If the board agrees to have that committee meet, we'll go ahead and set that up in the next couple of weeks.
Get us some dates.
Okay. I'll be glad to do that. The Hillcrest, I think it was July 21st meeting, the county commissioners approved the repaving of the area to the north of this building in the, what we call the lower parking lot. We ran into, after they cut the asphalt out and opened up the pit, we ended up with a problem with the subsurface soils that we did not know about. And we had to dig that out. And I made the decision to go ahead and approve that change order. Otherwise, we'd still have the pit open, and it would have been a bad situation in that parking lot. It was an $8,000 change order. So I'm notifying the board. General Services is going to pay for that out of existing funds. But I wanted to, since that was the contract you all approved, and I felt like I had to make an emergency decision, I just went ahead and told the contractor to keep working and not stop. So
We need, and if it looks like that's gonna impact General Services, we need to bring them back to the board, I think.
we will. We want to let the budget run out, a little bit further before we see how everything goes. We do plan for some contingencies in General Services, so if we don't have those contingencies, we'll be all right. But if we do, we'll be back to you. We're still having issues with trying to sell our real property surplus. Every time we get closer and closer to having somebody to run an auction for us or help us sell the property, something happens. And so I hope to have a proposal to the board October 6th to finally get this property out on the market and get it sold. I'm tired of paying for pools at Carolina Trace that we don't get to use, so.
Still think all the taxpayers should be able to go out there to vote.
Somehow I don't think they're gonna let you through the gate. So, anyway, it's an interesting dilemma.
Need the county staff to go out there.
Yeah, I know, I figured it would've been a great perk for staff,
Perk for
but
staff.
that isn't gonna happen.
I know the HR would like to have that with kids.
Sure, take a perk, could use it for health wellness.
I mean, aren't we paying fees for each individual property?
You pay a fee for each homeowner, it's a homeowner's due,
Right.
and it goes towards upkeep of, there's 17 different property ownerships, and so it goes to that upkeep of that property. We're essentially better off, almost, some of these are odd lots. If we can just get the adjoining property owners interested, yes.
Yeah, so the dues are less
No, $450. Up to $450 we've paid in dues. It depends on which homeowners association it is attached to.
Is that per property or is that?
That's per property. Yeah, we gotta get rid of that stuff. We've discussed parking at the courthouse on several occasions. We basically have established the first come, first served policy. We did establish some assigned parking for the clerk and for the district attorney. Now the district attorney is wanting additional reserved parking. The parking he's actually wanting is attached to the sheriff's office that the sheriff really uses. So, at this point, they, instead of talking to me, they decided to put it in writing. Once they put it in writing, I felt I had to give it to the board to ask the board what you all would like for us to do. One thing that should help parking is that the Colts fans will be moving to the government center here. We're putting the Colts offices in the basement of Hillcrest. That was one of the recommendations that came out of several different reports, the Evergreen audit being one of them, that they needed more space and really needed to be out of the enrichment center. So, and actually it will work better having them right next door to DSS with all the clients that, that they transport.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I would just.
Again, just let me ask a question. How many spaces are we talking about? And so we're talking 6 spaces?
He has,
And what's the justification for doing assigned spaces?
all right, Pleasantly, there are 3 spots reserved for our office in the Lee County Law Enforcement Center parking area off of Elm Street. My understanding is that this number is reflected the district attorney's office size when the present annex was initially occupied in the mid-1990s. Since then, our office has grown to 4 full-time support staff and 4 assistant district attorneys, and this does not include a space for myself. He's not here every day, and I don't think we should be reserving space for folks that aren't here every day. On heavy multi-court days, finding a space can be a challenge, and the other issue is that the reason they asked for it last year is they have several females in the department, and they don't feel if they work at especially in December and January when dark comes early, they want to have more of a secured area to come to than having to cross the entire parking lot in the dark, even though the parking lot is lit. And we are at the law enforcement center, but they don't, they want to be closer to the building for security reasons.
Mr. Chairman, he was indicating, the county manager was indicating that he felt like he needed to give him a response in writing, and I was just going to simply suggest that part of that response ought to be include a response from the sheriff, since it looks like he's intending to encroach on the sheriff's assigned parking area. Then the sheriff ought to have a chance to weigh in on that.
It's really not, some of those parking spots that are down there are not assigned,
Right.
but the sheriff, because his guys get there before most of the other staff does, they're taking those spots. So essentially, you would be taking spots away from the sheriff.
So we need to talk to the sheriff before we do anything.
Okay.
One of the things that I'd like to say, without being too critical of the sheriff's department, is that we've got the back lot there on the corner. gravel and all that stuff, right?
You mean up on top of the corner next to Gilliland
Like if
and?
you're coming out of the sheriff's office up there to the
Mhm.
left, right,
Mhm.
okay, because I saw them working, I haven't that right. You know, one of the things might be, if the sheriff would work with us, is maybe to have, some of his folks park there, because that's coming in the back where the sheriff's department is. I know, not so much for the DA, but for those serving jury duty. You know, I talked with you about this, earlier. I served jury duty a few months ago, and oh my gosh, I mean, I was parking down past the post office, and I got there early. I know some of you find that hard to believe, but I actually got there early, you know, and there were 19 sheriff's cars in the parking lot that I could count. There may have been some unmarked ones that I didn't know about. You know, if we could work with the sheriff's department and maybe put them in that newly prepared parking lot up there at the back, then that would free up some closer, you know, to the building.
There's also the issue of the historic courthouse where probation is housed,
Mhm.
where they're parking state cars up there in basically prime spots, and those cars aren't moving.
Right.
We're going to be asking them to move those to that lower parking lot when Colts leaves. So hopefully that will relieve some of the issues for the jurors
And
up
another
there.
thing with the jury duty is when those Colts vans were parked there, most times they took up 2 spaces.
Mhm.
You know, so that will help when they're gone, but maybe the sheriff would help us out a little bit with that.
Right. Well, I think what I'm hearing is I need to meet with the sheriff and see if the sheriff can meet with the DA and try to work something out.
Can they come in, they can come in the sheriff's department and, I mean,
They actually, I think, their entrance is there at the jail
right.
where you go into the Sally Port kind of thing there,
Right,
yeah.
I noticed in the information we got in our packet that was, you know, a lot of them were concerned because they were encountering people that they may not have a great relationship with, you know, from prior court cases or whatever, that maybe them going into the sheriff's office from that back lot would be better, and not where everybody else is parked.
I would suggest to you, as soon as you make these adjustments, you'll hear from the clerk or somebody else. So why don't
She'll
you
want more
just-
space.
Yeah. So why don't you
She
just
wants to
look-
take that upper parking lot and make it reserved
Okay.
for the judges and the clerk.
Okay. So
So-
why don't you just look at all the parking at one time?
Mm-hmm.
And by all means, I would suggest and certainly hope that we think about the disabled and making their parking spaces closer to the ground floor operations than where they are now, scattered all over now. Just bring them into a central location.
I'll just mark that down and try to meet with everybody.
Might as well get them all at once, instead of piecemeal.
All right, page 110, and they have waited patiently for the entire meeting. Mr. and Mrs. Robert Bazinski are here from Buck Road Drive, and I know I was persistent for 7 years to get a road paved. Well, she's been persistent for about 15 years trying to get her road paved. And she probably has talked to several members of this board about Buck Road Road. It is a private road. The board has tried to, in the past, stay away from being involved with private roads. But in this particular case, the property owners are trying to develop their own funding to pay for the road. But they're looking for us to help in some way, like do an assessment, which I need to, I'm gonna keep looking over at Carrie here to see what she thinks about us doing that, because then it's a tax deductible thing. It's a property tax issue then for the road. They're currently having issues selling property along the road. Banks, realizing it's a private road that's not DOT compliant, are not wanting to make loans. So I'm just seeking some guidance here, because we are investing some time with the property owners there, and how far y'all want us to go with this and pursue this.
Chairman.
Can I make a comment? It is deeded a public road.
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah,
you wanted to
if
come
you
up.
would though, come up into the mic and do your name.
The road itself has been deeded public on the plats and everything. It is a public road. The developer did very good paving. It's been there, we've been in that subdivision now a little over 12 years. He did not get his paperwork filed timely, so now it's starting to fall apart. But the road had been done by Sanford contractors, so he put a lot of money into the road. It is wide, it met DOT. We were on the first part of it when we moved in. He had 3 driveways he was supposed to swale, and they would have accepted to that part, and he did not do it. He added on to the road. The second part of it, the paving was bad. We told him immediately when it was done. Every time you would look, they had a hole in it to do a core sample. DOT, whatever ESC, whoever this company is, because I have all the paperwork at home, has proof that it was done right. I don't think it was, but Mr. Adkins is a very nice man, and he accepted it. And they added a third part to it. So we have talked to all the homeowners. We had meetings at my house. Everybody but 2 people are willing to do it, but Mr. Atkins went into foreclosure. There were 8 lots. We think we have 4 of them that have been sold. A house next to me is in foreclosure now. The bank said that they're having trouble with somebody buying it because no bank wants to make a loan on it. We had somebody that sold a house, people moved in, they said we haven't closed. Bank would not accept. They have now closed, but that was because they said that I was going to get the road paved.
Oh, no.
So we have, I'd say 98% of the people. Mr. Bridwell came last October to my house. He told him it would cost approximately $750 per lot. If you own 2, it was gonna be $1,500. People agreed. I just have 2 homeowners that said, we can't do it. Everybody else is saying, yes, we will do it. I don't wanna be in charge of the project. I know nothing about roads. I've had the DOT out now 5 times. They're giving me another itemized list. They were out on Monday of last week, and they marked the road again. We have blue markings, we have white markings, we have orange markings. But they marked it again, and they're going to give us another detailed list. I don't wanna take people's money. I don't want them to write me a check. We have no homeowners association. That was one thing that they said, we don't mind fixing this road, but we don't want a homeowner association. But the road was up to DOT standards when it was put in, and it was deeded a public road, but it was not maintained. So that's my, any other questions?
So where are we now with this, with this, with DOT's interest? DOT is willing to consider taking over maintenance of the project if it's completed?
If it's completed,
If it's completed?
Yes.
So they need a project manager?
essentially, yes, sir.
They need a project manager and someone that's willing to see the project through to completion and find the funding to do that.
They believe they have the funding.
The people in the
But they need a project manager.
One of the things that, you know, we have to be careful with is we'll have to bid it. If we were the project manager.
Yeah, but we're not allowed to get in the road business. Right?
We just got out of it tonight.
That's not necessarily true.
I'm thinking that
You can acquire
You can acquire property.
a property for road, right?
Correct. It's the operation of a road that.
We can't
You
operate.
can't operate a road, okay.
We, you know, we proved that we could build a road.
Yeah, we certainly
But we
could.
built a road, but we couldn't
Bob
operate the road.
Talley,
But you
right?
don't wanna wait 7 years.
I have been working on this since 2005. So I've been working on this forever.
She's working on her road longer than I worked on this road.
I've got a folder this thick. So, but everybody is willing to do it. We have a lot of military that move in there. Deep River or Buckrow is right off Deep River. So we have a lot of military people in there. They can't sell their property. They can't be able to do. And so this is, you know, last year I went to the Board of Assessment to say my property is going down in value. It's going down, and they agreed with me. They lowered my assessment because they figured it was going down. That's bad for the county. I didn't tell anybody else in my subdivision to go get their property lowered. You guys gonna collect less tax?
You're on record now.
That's all right.
What
She's
are
leveraging us.
legal, options, you know, as, because it sounds like we're not talking about the county paying for it, just perhaps facilitating it?
That is essentially what they're asking us to do.
We would have to do an assessment though for it.
We would have to assess the property owners.
They're willing to do that. They're willing
And so
to do
the two that aren't willing to do it would have to end up in the end doing it.
that. Possibly if that got put to their taxes, that they would pay for it anyway.
You said then it becomes a tax deduction, is that how that works?
Yeah, it's an assessment on their taxes. They get it as a tax deduction.
We did that on some water lines.
Yeah.
Passed. I have one quick question, and I do understand and sympathize, but I want to also know how many private roads we have in the county. Do we know that?
I don't have the number, but I have the map in my office,
Well,
and
we
it
need to
is.
know that.
And it is.
We have several, we have another area,
Why don't you open it up?
That's,
we have another
That's
one,
my
Dixie
concern.
Farm Roads, has asked us to do something.
Right.
yeah. My concern is I think Commissioner Reeves just mentioned it, and certainly I know how this young lady feels, but I think that if we do this, then we'll have someone coming next week and the next week, and then we'll get ourselves into and I'm not sure we want to do that or not. I certainly, I'm with you, and I know how it is, but I'm just not sure if we're gonna be able to do that and then not do it for everyone else. And if we're gonna do it for everyone else, then that's okay. But it's all, well,
There's a difference though, I mean,
well,
how many of those private roads would be willing to fund the whole thing?
well.
Most of the roads that have come to us have asked us to fund the roads as
See,
well.
that's what I'm
So
saying.
this is a different
There
animal.
is
This is a different
difference.
situation.
It's a
Well,
different
but what I'm saying is
situation.
supposing they do, and that is we're right back where we are. And I'm not saying not to do this, I'm just saying that we gotta be careful on what we do and how we do it. And if we put ourselves out there for this one, then we open up. It's a philosophy I always have. If you have two children, you got one piece of candy, you either you break it equally in half, or you don't give anybody any.
Maybe what we need to do is
So you
consider
have to-
what our
so-
policy is gonna be with regard to uniform application of principle here. Are we going, what's our policy gonna be? Are we going to allow ourselves to get engaged in these kinds of projects? And what's the limit? Are we gonna, to the extent that we're
Also
gonna do this?
disputes at the same time. Some property owners don't want to, some property owners do, that's a dispute.
Well, we had the same dispute when we were doing water.
That's right.
And, you know, there's a certain percentage that have to agree to do it.
Right.
So I understand that part, and I'm not opposed, but I am interested in knowing, and each case has to stand on its own merit.
That's right.
But we can't afford to have a county manager road superintendent at all. So if he comes back with an explanation of how and who will be doing it, certainly I'm not opposed to it.
I would just like to add one additional thing, Mr. Chairman, that I think in some cases, persistence is important. And I think that this community, this particular subdivision in this community has been very, very aggressive in trying to seek resolution. They've done a lot on their own, trying to resolve this without engaging the county. And working directly with DOT, they've exhausted their internal remedies up to this point. They have really tried to resolve this without, and they've tried to engage Mr. Bridwell, DOT, all the other remedies that they had. And they've come to the county as a last resort to try to resolve it, engaging us at this point. And I think I give them high marks for doing everything on their own that they could. Trying to engage Mr. Adkins, doing everything that they can at their level. I think they're escalating it now for lack of any other options. And I give them high marks for that. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least give them a chance at in helping them from our end to the extent possible.
Okay, Commissioner Smith and I went out to a meeting. I think as a result of the meeting, one of the questions that I had, you said you resolved Mr. Atkins, is has all legal remedies been addressed?
Mr. Atkins went in foreclosure on all the lots.
I understand that.
There were
but
77 acres. He has put his home that he has into his daughter's name. He has nothing. So I don't know how we could go and be able to do
Where's
legal
the cat? I don't know.
ramifications on him.
He was asking me which Adkins it was. I
So
don't know.
the question I had though is, and we would have to refer to an attorney because I don't know this, is even if he filed bankruptcy, if he has any remaining properties left, or if he put in his daughter's name before, knowing that he was going into bankruptcy, is that legal? Whatever he has pending things. I don't know these things, so that's the reason I'm asking. Has all legal remedies, has a lawyer told you there are no legal remedies?
We have no idea.
Okay.
At the end of this road, dead end into 77 acres. That has also been taken over by First Bank.
Okay, see, I guess the question I have is, does First Bank really have first remedy on that before the people that he signed contracts with?
I don't know. There were 8 vacant lots. A realtor from California is selling the 8 lots. I know one man bought 2 lots. Somebody else, they call me because I told Althea Thompson, anybody that looks at any of these lots, they have any questions, you call me. They'll call me. I got a call from Oklahoma the other day. I wasn't sure I was going to answer, but it was for somebody interested in a lot.
And I'm not trying to put you on the
No,
spot.
I understand.
It's that we had the same thing. Bob Bridwell and I went out to Dixie Farm Road. We had the same issue that came up where the developer, conveniently went into bankruptcy. When I asked that question, nobody had consulted a lawyer to see if they had other options, to overcome the issues they have. They have not only issues with the road, but also with property boundary lines. And so, I think this is my opinion, I think before the county gets involved, we need to make sure all the legal remedies have been issued. Am I out of line?
No, I don't know enough bankruptcy. I know just enough to know my way around a little bit, but as far as how bankruptcies work, it's going to depend on each individual case, and it'll depend on when you filed bankruptcy. I mean, this could be 10 years ago, we don't know.
I'm not sure he's in bankruptcy.
He might not be.
I just know the lots had been taken over. He told me they were foreclosed on. This 77 acres, Althea Thompson said, until this road is improved, they can't subdivide that. That was his next thing that they were going to subdivide. That can't be subdivided. Prime, beautiful, wooded property. I don't want anybody to log that and go down my road because it's going to be gone. And I don't know that, I can stop them because it's platted public road. It's on all plats. Everything said it's public. And the homeowners are willing to pay to get it up to standards. So they all said, we'll be willing to fund it. But I know nothing about highways, and I don't wanna be responsible for their money.
With a case like that, would the bank be one of the,
We had a letter from the bank, Mr. Bridwell did, in, January that said that they would pay their share. If I can, right now, they were willing to pay $882.
right?
I mean, that's better than a kick in the teeth, but we had these 8 lots that weren't sold. And
Is that $182 per lot, or is that just $182?
well, the 8 lots are separate from the 77 acres that the bank owns. The other people that bought the 8 lots are from California, and they absolutely refuse to have anything to do with anything. Everybody looking at a lot, man, I'm out there right now. This is what it's gonna cost you, because we need this road to get fixed, and the people are saying yes. So they're not objecting to having to pay. The road is worse now than it was last fall. Last fall, it was gonna cost us, we had 2 estimates, one was 36,000, one was 42,000. Mr. Bridwell took it, and he was going by frontage foot when he gave me a list. I had to get all the property owners to sign. I had most of them. I had 2 that I could not get to sign. One man is in Afghanistan, and the other lady is a single person, and she called me the other day. I've been trying to get a hold of her for a year and a half, and she finally called and said, I can't afford. But maybe if it goes on our property taxes, that would be different.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would ask that, well, number one, I'll say that we're not gonna resolve it this evening. That's clear. However, I do find it supportive for us looking for some options when people are coming forth and saying, go ahead and assess me. So I would ask that we move in that direction at this point in time.
Thank you.
So, I guess in supportive and moving in that direction, it'd be, Crumpton and our attorney and
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we got,
possibly myself and.
Getting all the folks to be
yes,
assessed.
and,
And Althea.
yeah, Althea and
Mr.
Russell Spivey.
He's been in the road business.
Okay, let's.
He has he has a deputy director that's been in the road,
Yeah.
so there he has been, so utility business, so
Okay.
you know, maybe you can put something together.
Speaking with us, let's go ahead.
So just, trying to finish up my report. I received a request, this isn't in the report, but I received a request from Brenda Potts, DSS, about some of the furniture in the Hillcrest building. We have some needy families that need the beds. She was wanting to know if the commissioners would be willing to donate that in a nonprofit way to help those folks. We'll give it to you can donate it to a nonprofit. You can't donate it to the individuals directly.
So who would be the nonprofit that would take care of that?
Have to give them Ms. Potts and discuss that with her, but could end up being JCPC or somebody like that.
Okay.
Once we do it, we don't make the decision on who gets what to do it. We just give it to them. Just make sure it's clear that the county doesn't make that call.
I just want to make sure it's okay with y'all, because if it's less than $5,000, I can make the donation,
Okay.
but we want to clear it through the board first.
But they don't need to just sit up there, somebody can be using them.
Right.
Do you want
And we're not
to
gonna be
vote on
using-
that or just a
Want a motion for it?
Motion would be great,
So moved.
that'd make the attorney happy, or
Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'll take care of that.
Right. October, we go back to 2 meetings a month, October 6th and the 20th. And moving on to my last item, Mr. Chairman, we've been asked to provide any legislative goals to the Association of County Commissioners by September 19th. I know the legislature just finished their session. I don't know if there are any issues that have come up that the board would like to have as a group go to the association. to be put on their legislative goals.
I have one, and maybe Commissioner Womack can just answer it now. It seems as though the local governments were cut out from any control over what happens during the practice.
As a general rule, yes.
Okay.
They have no authority beyond the existing noise, dust, light, ordinances that they have for enforcement purposes, and their ability to do ad valorem taxation, typical type of things. But there's no ability to impose zoning, special zoning ordinances, or any unique regulations or ordinances that would pertain to this industry as an individual industry. So the legislature was not singling out this industry for special protection, but rather trying to keep this industry from being singled out by municipalities and local governments for special exclusion, is what they were trying to do. So, but if there's a concern about overreaching, I guess, we could express that, in writing to the legislature.
I would certainly like to think that we should do that.
Well, I'd like to add, when I went to the hearing that night, somebody came up to me and asked me, well, why do you, how do you feel that the counties are being left out? And I asked them, I said, well, are we in the logging business? Do we regulate them? Are we in the agriculture business? Do we regulate them? And all the other businesses that conduct business in Lee County, we don't regulate everything. We don't have a say in everything other than the, noise ordinances and things like that. So it was just,
And that's generally, I think the attitude that they had was that we don't have special regulations for the other industries, and therefore they didn't want to have special regulations for this one.
other than what the state provides.
Anything else, sir?
No, sir, I'm finished.
Well,
Yeah,
Mr.
just-
Unfunded mandates, just the whole
Well,
huge umbrella of them as far as, of course, that seems to be one of the top issues always.
which brings up my proposal for a resolution and for the Board of Commissioners, the County Commissioners, or the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, if you don't mind. I'm gonna recommend it,
What resolution is that?
the one I have here.
You looked at me like I should know about it. I don't know about it.
I'm sorry, it just, I'll read it to you. We'll have to make copies. I didn't get any copies. I do apologize. A resolution supporting the repeal of North Carolina Senate Bill 3, a renewable energy and energy efficiency portfolio standard 2007. Whereas North Carolina Senate Bill 3, the renewable energy and energy efficiency portfolio standard, dictates the power companies to increase their use of solar power 6% by 2015, 12% by 2021. Whereas the renewable energy and energy efficiency portfolio standard, in order to meet these dictates, heavily subsidizes the solar energy industry through tax credits and forcing power companies to purchase solar-generated electricity at artificially inflated prices. Whereas subsidies by their nature artificially suppress and hide the true costs of solar power. Whereas solar power is far costlier than natural gas or coal for electricity production. Whereas the Energy Information Administration projects by 2018 the total system cost of solar photovoltaic to be $144.3 per megawatt hours and solar thermal to be $216.5 per megawatt hours. Whereas conventional natural gas, 67.1 per megawatt hour, and advanced natural gas is 65.6 per megawatt hour, or conventional coal, $100 per megawatt hour. Whereas the power companies are allowed to pass the dictated costs onto the consumer through higher electricity rates, and whereas the solar industry artificially benefit from the higher mandates, and those on a fixed or lower income incur the higher electricity rates. Whereas the free market allows for efficient and cost-effective means of energy production, now therefore it be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the County of Lee in North Carolina will support the efforts of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners to include as one of their legislative goals for 2015 the repeal of the North Carolina Senate Bill 3, Renewable Energy and Energy Efficient Portfolio Standard. That is my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Where did you get your, I'm
A
not questioning them,
series-
I'm just questioning where you got them from.
Series of well, one of them being the Energy Information Administration, another one being a business journal, another one being, there's about 3 or 4 sources I've got right off the top of my head.
Who has a copy of Senate Bill 3?
I think I've got it.
We'll make that a part of the package you send out.
I would like
I
to
have it.
add, I think it'd be useful for us to be able to see all the background information, but I will also add that Senate Bill 3 has got a lot more than what Commissioner Smith just talked about. There are a lot of objectionable renewable fuel standards in Senate Bill 3. It goes beyond solar. There's some other pieces in there, ethanol is a part of Senate Bill 3. There's
Biomass.
And biomass, and I gotta tell you that the Senate Bill 3 is causing us to have outrageously high fuel prices, energy prices in this state, which is suppressing the manufacturing resurgence in this state compared to other states. It's keeping energy prices up for home heating and for electricity, and it's keeping companies like Frontier Spinning in Parkdale from being able to do expansions in this state and having to go out of state to do their expansions, because the cost of power, the unit cost of power, is higher in this state than it is elsewhere in the southeast, and that is a key element in the business resurgence in this state right now.
I'm wondering, how did the association miss that already?
Well, the association, I tell you, I sit on the the environmental steering committee, and the environmental steering committee will review these particular NCACC goals, and we are heavily weighted towards environmental matters as opposed to energy matters. And what will happen is, probably the prognosis on overturning this particular mandate is low, is slim, because we are so heavily weighted towards solar and wind renewables, and the bias, and I'll call it a bias, is towards renewable energy sources and away from hydrocarbons and dependence on hydrocarbons. So what happens is the NCACC, as a general rule in the environmental committee, votes for renewable fuel standards and subsidies for renewable energy sources.
Well,
That's why it's there.
Okay, so you're just asking that be included as one of the discussion points for the legislature.
Right.
We're not voting on your resolution.
Well, he's proposing that.
I'm proposing that we approve
we
this
submit
to
it.
submit this as an, okay.
You know, that here again, that's a situation where you've taken it upon yourself to research it, bring it to the table. I have not seen any of that or Senate Bill 3 or anything. So why would I want to just jump right into it? I'd also like to know why the association didn't take up the issue. So I think voting on it is,
Well, I'm not going to defend Commissioner Smith's point, other than to say that Commissioner Smith is raising the issue, which we have till September the 19th to raise these issues. We're not meeting again till after then. So basically, it came up that in the event that this board was choosing to raise any legislative issues, it's either do it now, or we're not going to raise any issues as a board, because September the 19th is a cutoff.
here's all I'm saying to you in this regard. I think we can forward that resolution as is, as one of the concerns of our legislative goals, without this board adopting that resolution.
Well, he can certainly do it, because if you go online to the NCACC, any individual commissioner can submit it. So he can do it as an individual, or any group of us can do it, or the board can do it, either way. There is a block when you submit that says, did your board have a resolution, and they want a copy of it if you do resolve. So it gives it more weight if the board does it. So, but that's, and I sit on that committee. I mean, I know I sit on that committee, so it does get a little more weight if the board resolves it.
As I said, and I know I'm being redundant, but I'm still trying to understand why, if it's such a great resolution, that the association has it listed as one of the major concerns for it.
They don't have it as a major concern.
I understand that.
But it's one of these jaded items. Everybody's into renewable this, renewable that, regardless of the impact of the reality and the cost effectiveness of it.
Well,
See what's
I would just like for you to get the credit for raising that as a legislative goal, not the board to be accountable.
I think it will help that, whatever y'all want to send up to the association. The goals deadline is September 19th, and then the steering committees, in this particular case, environmental steering committee would get a hold of this recommendation and they would vet it to see if it was worthy to go to the legislative goals committee in November, and then in December the board of directors review and finalizes the recommendation, and then January 15th and 16th you have the legislative goals conference where the membership actually votes on the proposals that are made. So this is an issue that may not have been before the steering committees at this time, and that's probably why they haven't considered it. But obviously, energy is becoming one of those areas that's being more and more discussed.
Well, the suggestion that they got is actually Kirk can submit this, and then we could bring it before the board as a resolution to support that. I think we can still submit that.
If you wanna get it before the committee,
It's gotta be
where
by-
it's reviewed, you gotta do it tonight as a board resolution. If you don't do it tonight, then you won't be able to have the board resolution annotated when it goes before the committee. We meet in October.
But you can
Just
do
change
it.
that, didn't you?
Okay, goals.
We can do it at the goals board because we did that with another
You can do it in
resolution.
January.
Oh, well, yeah, you could, I suppose you could always introduce something in January.
Goals.
You could introduce a board resolution at that time.
All right. I think what's coming out of tonight, we have to remember, we gotta follow the association rules. So goals may be submitted in any of the following formats: a resolution approved by the Board of Commissioners, or a letter from the chairman of the board on behalf of the entire board, or by a letter from an affiliate organization. So, if it's gonna come from Lee County and be considered, it either has to come under the chairman's signature or it has to be approved as a resolution of this
For the
board.
chairman to sign it, it would have to come from the board.
Under our rules, yes, sir.
Our rules,
Yes, sir. The chairman acts on behalf of the entire board, but really cannot set policy on behalf of the entire board.
But I wouldn't do that without the board.
But we're still not adopting a resolution. We're just authorizing you to send it forth as a legislative goal. Is that correct? Is the board,
He just got, if I'm not mistaken, I heard you say either as a resolution or the board approves and gives the,
or a letter to
yeah.
the chair, from the chair, sending forth a legislative goal?
To be considered.
So moved in that regard.
Okay, so we have a motion.
No, I'm
Ricky.
fine, I'm okay,
You good?
I'm fine.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, got one opposition, the rest ayes. Okay.
You have two no's, Chairman.
All right.
Any other
Okay.
issues?
So we're going into commissioners' comments. Start with, Commissioner Reeves.
It's already 9:10.
We should have, let's say something coming.
Yeah.
Okay, we still had something to go.
I would move that we go in closed session and get that out of the way. Skip the comments.
All right, is everybody?
Nothing further.
Okay, so you heard the motion, all those in
You need
favor
to-
say aye.
We need to read the exact motion.
Okay.
I move we go into closed session to consider matters relating to the location or expansion of a business in the area per North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A4.
Okay, you heard the motion, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
We just let